Live stream is starting. I think we're just missing Deputy Mayor Schwartz.
I know he said he was going to have to leave early. I just don't quite know when he's going to go. So.
We're live on YouTube, live on Facebook. I believe our stream on the website and public access is indeed also live. I see Deputy Mayor Schwartz. Look good, look good. We have a few presentations. With all right, I see everybody. That recording, I'm sure you all heard it, and our internal recording, Mayor, whenever you are ready.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
We have Councilwoman Rami Rice.
Here.
Councilman Began.
Here.
Councilwoman Organ.
Here.
Councilman Kaplan.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Yes.
Mayor Dunleavy.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 226-2020, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2021 by way of resolution number 111-2020, filing a copy in the township clerk's office and posting it on the municipal building bulletin board, and the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of announcements. At tonight's meeting, we have our township manager, Dean Kaczynski, our township clerk, Doug Roussillon, our volunteer cablecaster, Ron Goodman, and from the law firm of McCusker and Salmi, Rosen and Carvelli, our township counsel, John Shadanian. The next televised council meeting will take place on Tuesday, December 14, 2021 at 7 p.m. Municipal offices, a reminder, will be closed this Thursday and Friday, November 25th and 26th for Thanksgiving. The council met in closed session to discuss the following: advisory board interviews, COVID update, PSE&G diversion, contracts, Bell Avenue, Park Mobile, personnel, 2022 operations budget, legal issues and/or opinions regarding any items on open session, litigation updates, and Oprah. And two other quick reminders. On November 29th at 6 p.m., we will have our menorah lighting on the municipal green. And on December 6th at 6 p.m., we will have our Christmas tree lighting. So now we'll move on to presentations. And we have a couple of certificates of appreciation. First one being for William Moses. Doug, do you have? And I don't know if anyone here wants to say a few words.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
So I don't know, is Mr. Moses on?
Yeah, I'm just
I
checking.
am not sure. I'm not seeing him.
I don't see him.
All right. Was he invited?
I did try to touch base with him.
All right. So should we hold this till next council meeting when he's here?
I'm fine with that.
If you want.
If you'd like to.
Okay.
Sounds-
The next certificate of appreciation is for dispatcher Diane Tren.
Mayor, if I can, I will take that. I've worked with Diane for many years, and it's a privilege for me to recognize Diane. I spoke to her earlier today, and she's a very humble person, those that know her, and she really did not want to join the Zoom meeting, but just let me say a few words about Diane. Again, it's my privilege to recognize her this evening for 45 years of service to the Township of Teaneck and its residents. Diane started working for the Township Police Department in 1976 as part of the Civilian Community Action Program under then Police Lieutenant Fred Green. Diane worked in assignments in administration, filled openings when needed in the Detective Bureau, the Juvenile Bureau, and the Records Bureau before she transitioned to a police radio dispatcher. That was a civil service title. Back on June 30th, 1980. Diane's going to officially retire January 1st of 2022, marking 45 years of service. Diane, your co-workers, I know you're listening, your co-workers, teammates, and friends salute your success. We're inspired by your strong work ethic, kindness, generosity, and I'm truly humbled by your loyalty to the Township of Teaneck and its residents. 45 years is certainly a long time to handle the stress of taking emergency police, fire, and medical calls and dispatching the appropriate response of police officers, firefighters, ambulance corps members. Again, the job certainly meant sacrificing many holidays, long hours, and weekends of your life. And everyone thanks you for being the calm voice on the other side of the telephone and radio during the time of crisis. And there were many of them you answered, from murder calls, domestic violence, accident calls, fire calls, EMS calls, or just the area resident who was lonely for your tour that needed someone to speak to. And you certainly spent time with everyone when needed. You always knew what to say, Diane, how to keep people calm, and certainly dispatched the resources needed to ensure the men and women in the police department remain safe and providing the best service, of course, to our residents. Your tireless work ethic and professionalism has set the tone for many of the new dispatchers that work there now. Please know you will always have a home here in Teaneck. We certainly all wish you the best of luck on your well-deserved retirement. And again, I know Diana to be a very humble person. We had, as I mentioned, a great conversation this morning, which brought back a lot of memories. I certainly worked the desk as a supervisor and filled in on the desk many a times. And we had a good crew working, and Diane certainly was a great part of that team. We have a certificate of appreciation from council, Diane, that recognizes your 45 years of dedicated service to the township, and which is not showing, there it is, which I will make sure that you receive. And I did some searching today, and believe it or not, found a 45-year service pin, which I will include with the certificate of appreciation. And again, I thank you for your service. Everyone thanks you for your service, and Godspeed on your retirement.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Thank you very much. Well said, Dean. I have been dispatched by Diane many a times as an ambulance member, and the words that come to my head are calm, cool, and collected, and consummate professional. I've been at several dinners, but the police dinners where she was recognized for saving lives, and that's what she does when she's on the other end of that phone and helping the resources get to the emergency at an expeditious way, but a safe way. So I do wish you a lot of success in the next chapter of your life, and continued good health. And thank you for everything you've done for the Teaneck residents.
Thank you. Any other members of council wish to make a comment? Councilmember Organ? You're muted, Karen.
I know I'm being redundant, but when Dean and Ellie say calm voice, it really is calm voice. And when you're in a situation where your adrenaline is about to go up and you don't know where you're going, to have somebody with such a calm and level voice dispatching you makes all the difference. So thank you very much, Diane.
Any other members of council wish to make a comment?
Headquarters to any available ambulance. I would love to hear Sarah one more time, but I think she's on mute or she's not called in.
Well, Diane, thank you on behalf of the entire town of Teaneck for your unbelievable service to keeping everybody safe here, to dispatching everyone. And as we've heard, you did it with grace and poise and competence. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart for being there for us for so many years. Thank you very much. All right. Next presentation will be on the chicken ordinance, and we have, I think, for the first time at council, our health officer, Dr. Gina Miranda Diaz. Welcome, Doctor.
Dr. Gina.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have a presentation. I'm going to just give you the highlights. I don't need to read the presentation to you. Doug, are you going to launch this presentation for me?
Absolutely. You just tell me when you want the next slide.
Okay, great.
Let us get there. She is.
Okay, so backyard chickens.
Hang
pros and
on.
cons. And
Okay, let me find the F5. Whoops. Can everyone see it okay?
Mhm.
okay. Next slide, please.
Okay, good.
I forgot that. We're going to talk about the ordinances very quickly. Who permits them, who has no information. And unfortunately, in the upload, some things got shifted around. Next, and diseases associated with chickens. Bergen County ordinances that prohibit farm animals and specifically poultry. And the list of the towns are there. This will all be put up for you to view. I don't want to bore you with pages and pages. There are about 24 towns that have ordinances prohibiting farms and poultry. Next, keep going. Go to the next slide, please. And the one after that. And so you see we have, I listed them in alphabetical order. Keep going. So these, some of them have all of these ordinances, some of them go on beyond poultry and barnyard, but I just wanted to include those and just stick with the definition of poultry. I didn't go into waterfowl or anything like that. And on to the next one. And these are only Bergen County. I kept it to Bergen County and Teaneck, no person shall be kept. And this is again, no lot ground on which he may be the owner, tenant, lessor, occupier, any pigs, horses, mules, cows, pigeons, or poultry of any age or description. So let's move on to the next one, please. Thank you. And keep going, please. We have ordinance and regulations about permits for farmlands. Again, Cluster, Demarest, Emerson. They have very specific details about how the coop should look, how far the distance from the home, the distance from the neighbor, the property line, the square footage that's needed per chicken, and the type of some of the specifications of the coop and licensing requirements. Please go on. We can go through this block by this section because it's really just every single town has their own ordinance, very specific, some not so specific, and so they vary according to the town. Continue, Doug. And we have about 16 towns with no informational ordinances on these animals, and they're listed again in this presentation. Thank you. So let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly next. Healthy backyard poultry basics. Next one, please. Keeping backyard poultry chickens has become more popular. People enjoy raising baby poultry. I did as a child in Puerto Rico, but that was a long time ago in a far different setting. Many people keep chickens to have fresh eggs. Although backyard poultry can be fun and educational, owners have to be aware that poultry can sometimes carry harmful germs that make people sick. Next one, please. Backyard chickens, the good. What's great about it? Fresh eggs, nutritious eggs, bigger. working compost material. They'd be happy to scratch out and peck out your compost. They're bug eaters, and they'll teach your kids a new level of responsibility. The 8 colors are different, and they're garden helpers. If they dig out bugs, weeds, and slugs, and they're fun for chickens are fun, and some people enjoy just watching them. I did as a child. Go ahead. Thank you. Now the bad stuff. Day-to-day care, a lot of care. They poop everywhere. You're going to have food out for them and water, so you're going to get more birds coming for food and water. So that means more poop. This individual had to clean his porch several times a day because there's so much chicken poop all over the place. They can ruin your garden because they just eat whatever's there. And they aren't quiet. They are not silent. Even hens make noise during egg laying. They can attract pests, flies, rodents, and roaches. Also, rats, possums, foxes, and raccoons are some of the predators. In a story that I have later on in this presentation, a hawk came and just snatched the chicken right off the premises. You won't be able to go out of town and just say, okay, I'm going to get a chicken sitter. Finding somebody to keep up and maintain the property and these chickens while you're away, it's going to be a challenge. You also have to have a veterinarian that specializes in poultry. Then chickens, they have different diseases, which we'll discuss later. And they have other diseases that can hurt other pets in your household. So just have to have the space, adequate space to keep these chickens. And if you have a hen that's not laying any eggs, then you have to decide if I'm going to give this hen to a butcher to have this hen slaughtered. And raccoons love to, one person documented the raccoon went in and slaughtered all 7 chickens. Next one, please. Most domestic chickens are 2 eggs every day. I'm not going to go into all of it. Above all, eggs are tastier. Chickens bring hours of joy. They caution about getting too attached to these feathered friends because, they die. They have an average lifespan of 5 to 8 years, and children and the elderly are susceptible. Backyard chickens are susceptible to accidents and predatory attacks. And he says that they can have genetic defects that shorten their lives. But it's nice that they can debug your area of the garden if that's something that you're worried about, and you get fresh eggs. Next slide. People say they become part of their family. He said that the children, touch and play with them, but you have to be very careful to wash your hands because they do transfer salmonella and other diseases to the home. Some chickens are calm, others are jittery. They're not like cuddly like cats and dogs. And you have to be careful because if people are immunosuppressed, children under age of 5, it can cause a lot of health issues. But they seem to like having the chickens. And we can go on to the next one. It just talks about some of the cliches like a pecking order. They actually peck each other out of the way when the older or the more robust chicken wants to get in there. So go ahead, please, Doug, to the next slide. How to keep a poultry backyard healthy. I'm not going to go into all of this, but I thought it was important to have it if people want to look at it because it is extensive and it does involve a lot of care on your part. Keeping the backyard, making sure you have the veterinarian for this, building a coop, setting up outdoors, how to clean, how to disinfect, having the right chemicals, making sure you wear the right garb to clean and disinfect the coop, and introducing new chickens and all that involves. There's a lot of information on the U.S. Department of Agriculture National Poultry Improvement Plan, and it tells you how to keep your backyard poultry safe. Please go ahead, and free of debris and droppings. Next slide, please. Thank you. When bringing another new poultry into the flock, they tell you what to do. Contact your veterinarian. How to keep them healthy. Again, keep them warm. Set aside a for you to put your shoes away. Don't bring them into the home. And so there's a lot of different, don't bring the clothes, the gloves, anything that you wear, the garb into the home. It should be disinfected in an area outside of the home before you bring it in. And any toys or anything that's left out there for the chickens should not be brought into the home because they bring organisms with you that are unsafe. And that includes not around food or drink. And one of the folks, they have children, so whenever they were making chicken, they said it was beef. So the children would get freaked out that they were eating chicken. Go right ahead, next one. Tips for cleaning, monitor your poultry's health. And again, biosecurity, practicing good biosecurity reduces the chance of your poultry on your yard being exposed to diseases, and keeping your distance, keep it clean. Don't hold disease into your home. Don't borrow disease from your neighbor. Don't share anything. If your neighbor has a chicken coop, everything has to be separate. And report sick birds and know the signs and symptoms of infection or disease. Next one, please. And disease associated with poultry. You can go on again. Thank you. Next one. Next slide, please. Thank you, Doug. These are reportable diseases. They just concluded a salmonella outbreak linked to backyard poultry. Centers for Disease Control reported 1,136 illnesses, 273 people hospitalized, 2 deaths. And this is 48 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And the investigation was just closed a week ago. Next slide, please. Thank you. So bird flu, obvious. That often happens. It doesn't really, not all influenza found in birds is bird flu. People can get sick or can be affected through contact with contaminated surfaces. And so this is clearly something that gives me pause with respect to welcoming birds into a home, chickens into the backyard. Some people can have serious illnesses, and the symptoms are similar to regular seasonal flu. So it can cause inflammation of the heart and brain and some other, unwelcome side effects and symptoms. Thank you. Next one. Next slide, please. Thank you, Doug. Campylobacter. All these diseases are reportable to the communicable disease reporting system that we have here in the state. Campylobacter it happens a lot. It spreads because people don't wash their hands from feces or poop of the infected animal. Who's at risk? Anyone can get Campylobacter. I get a lot of people get them and get the reports. Usually children younger than 5 and folks over the age of 65, but I have had people younger get Campylobacter. And it's really nasty infection and disease, and it's really annoying. It causes diarrhea, can be bloody, and just feeling really miserable for at least almost a week, sometimes a little more. E. coli, we know that shouldn't be anywhere, but in poop, it's harmless. It can make other people sick though. Most kinds of E. coli are harmless, but if you get E. coli and you get it in a bad place, or you get, oh, how come I can't see anything? I'm sorry. Can you still see me?
Mhm.
Hello?
Yeah, we can see you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Please don't call me. Okay. So, again, Shiga toxin, again, E. coli is just a disaster if it's not where it's supposed to be. And again, not all types of E. coli are dangerous, but it can be very, very harmful. And it could cause hemolytic uremic syndrome. Don't call me. Okay. My apologies.
Happens to the best of us.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I can't see you now. I don't know why. But
We're here, Gina. We can see
back.
you.
We see you.
Okay, the next one. Let me go on to the next slide. We'll go on to the next one. Again, histoplasmosis. This was a real problem for folks who have HIV and who are immunosuppressed. So if somebody is immunosuppressed, it could be a transplant patient, someone who has any kinds of immunosuppression. This can be very, very, very potentially deadly for those folks. Salmonellosis, we know that, and you can get salmonella from keeping eggs out too long. You can go to a wedding and the cake is out too long and it has this custard in it and it's made with eggs, and finally, 40, 50 people got sick who ate the cake. So salmonellosis is really a terrible infection, and it can happen from just handling it. So I always recommend, if you have cutting boards in your home, you should have a separate one for your poultry, separate one for your vegetables, and for your meat, because it can transfer through cutting boards as well. And if you wash it, some people wash their poultry, so that will splatter all over the inside of the sink. So you just have to be careful, even with poultry that you purchase from your local market. Next. And these are just references that I had so that you can go on your own and look at the references and read at length the information that I have just kind of blown through in these past couple of minutes, at the risk of putting you all to sleep. So this concludes my presentation. Next slide, please. Do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions of the health officer?
I didn't know the chicken moved, by the way. Sorry. No question?
Councilmember Rice, then Councilmember Organ.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gina, for the presentation. A lot of great information. I only wish we probably had this earlier on in our chicken conversations, but I just wanted to get your recommendation. I know you presented a lot of pros, a lot of cons, just a lot of basic information, but based upon your research and your findings, do you have a recommendation that you would state for the township? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
My only concern is that, there's so many variables that you can't control. The avian flu, the salmonellosis, kids don't wash their hands all the time. They think it's a pet, they want to hug it, they want to kiss it, and it's not a dog or a cat. So there is so many different things that can happen. They're not quiet, so people are going to be complaining to my office all the time about the noise and about the sound and about the poop. And it requires a rigorous attention to detail, to being clean, to washing your hands, having your kids wash your hands, making sure everything around you is clean. And it's just a tremendous amount of responsibility. Taking care of chickens in Puerto Rico is certainly a lot different than taking care of chickens in Teaneck. I just think that it's, especially for small children, vulnerable children and adults, and I just don't think it's worth the risk, but I'm just here to give you the facts and give you all the information you need to make a decision amongst yourselves. I'm not particularly fond of it because I just think it's not great for this setting, for this community setting. People are already always at each other's throats for every little thing. They put their hose, 2 feet close to my fence. I mean, there people, they planted a tree and the tree's gonna grow big in about 100 years and come over my property. So that we get these complaints all the time. I can't even imagine what's gonna happen if we throw chickens into the mix. And we're also inviting predators, hawks, raccoons, foxes, and all these other, and rats, unfortunately. So we're inviting these rodents and other pesky animals into the for a free meal. So it can be wanting.
Thank you for the great food for thought.
Sure.
Councilman Kaplan, I think I saw yours next.
So I really want to thank you for the presentation. There was obviously a lot of time and effort that went into it and a lot of information for our residents. I completely hear you about the complaints. We certainly get no shortage of them. On the other side of things, I think if we allowed a heckler's veto to deny everything, we'd be a town of one person. issue that was brought up by a lot of people that wanted these coops when we had our last ordinance up for discussion was that the requirements for the coops themselves pretty much excluded a lot of the commercially available coops available through Amazon or whatnot. Do you have an opinion about the quality of those coops, how they work, and whether or not, if we decide to pass an ordinance that allows this, whether those should be included?
I got to tell you, that's so far out of my purview, but I'm in my expertise, but I know
That's
that
totally fine.
the person in Montclair built it. They built their own coop to meet the specifications of the town. And they gave very, very specific instructions on how they built and where it was located.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Other questions from council of the health officer?
I thought Karen had her hand up earlier.
Karen, go ahead.
You're on mute, Karen.
That's going to be my whole night on mute. We've been hearing from residents in town so respectfully who are passionate about chickens and who want chickens. And so I had requested the report from you, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the report showing both sides of everything. The predators were what concerned me the most because I have a small dog and I like to let him out in the backyard in the morning and in the evening. Where do chickens go when it's snowing? Where do they go when it's really cold? Do they have to be brought into a home?
No, they should never be brought into the home. I mean, when they're little chickies, sometimes they keep them in the home for a couple of weeks. No, they heat them up. I think it's just going to be too cold in the winter for these chickens, and they're not going to lay many eggs if they're too cold. Sometimes they have these heaters that keep them warm, and so that's some of the things that they use to keep the chickens warm, or make a coop that's shelters them a lot. But I can't imagine with our winters being able to keep chickens, I don't know, warm unless you have a large area for them and you can, supply heating. And then it's supposed to be free range, so I don't know if they're going to be able to run around about in, 10-degree weather, 30-degree weather, below freezing.
Thank you.
So,
Other questions from council? Okay, I have one, Doctor. In terms of, you mentioned the other towns, Bergen County, that did have ordinances that would allow it. Have you heard of anything, or have you seen anything in data, county data, that indicates that a number of the things that you warn about here have actually occurred? Does this get tracked in any way?
the Department of Agriculture, I think, tracks the mayor, and they had a great article. I didn't include it in this presentation, but I will get it to you so you can look it up, the specifications from the Department of Agriculture. They did not, in fact, have any information that I could obtain directly from the internet, online, and I tried to reach them, but it was very difficult. They had a very automated system, so it's hard to get to a person. There are some health officers that say that they do have chicken ordinances in their towns. And again, I guess that's operable, that we can get that information through Oprah if nobody's actually tracking it. I assume there has to be some kind of tracking, because we do have to report every time somebody gets salmonella, if they get infected, in terms of how many, chickens get snatched by hawks or slaughtered by raccoons. I don't know if anybody tracks that, to tell you the truth. I really don't, but I'll find out for you.
And have you seen the proposed ordinance that we had? Have you taken a look at that?
Yes, I did look at the ordinance. I don't know, I've only looked at it briefly. And I don't know. I know that this is a very hot button issue, so I will keep my opinions to myself.
Okay.
I did read it.
In terms of the content of the ordinance,
Mhm.
there may have to be some more robust language
Absolutely.
in order to control for a number of these issues in terms of cleaning and control of the animals and where kept and how kept and so on and so forth than perhaps the proposed ordinance currently has. That's what I was kind of getting at.
No, I agree. Absolutely, Mayor.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Doctor, and a very, very belated welcome. I know you've been here a while, but I haven't been able to go over and say hello to you. So welcome and thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you
Thank you,
all.
Doctor. Happy
And
Thanksgiving.
see you all again. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We have another presentation. Culture Craft Cannabis Collective, LLC.
Our
W.
presenter
Lemon.
our presenter for this evening, could you just do me a favor and raise your hand in the attendees list?
I believe it's Anthony C, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
there he is. Yes, you're right, Councilman. Bringing him in. I will queue up the other presentation.
Hello, microphone check.
Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Anthony, welcome.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Anthony.
Good to see you, Anthony. Let
See
me
you all tomorrow.
queue up your presentation.
And if I can, Mr. Mayor, just say a note
Sure.
beforehand.
We've met him already. Go ahead.
Hi. So as one of the members of the cannabis subcommittee, just wanted to explain for the benefit of the public what is happening tonight. Recently on November 9th, the CRC, which is the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, announced the application process for recreational use businesses. And as the CRC announced at their meeting, they're going to begin accepting adult use applications commencing on December 15th. And specifically as of that date, the CRC will begin accepting licensing applications for cultivation, manufacturing, and testing laboratories. And then later on, they'll be doing adult use applications for retailers. And the notice application from the CRC specifically includes things that, we'll have Mr. Campbell talk about, like eligibility requirements, prioritization process, the application requirements, scoring measures, and the approval process for denial determinations. And the notice for the application does clearly provide clarity for local approval and municipal preferences. Specifically, it outlines what applicants need in a municipality in terms of letters or resolutions in support, and what counts as municipal preference and the consistency between them. So with that, I'd like to throw it to Mr. Campbell to introduce himself. He's one of the people that had reached out to the committee initially with an indication that they wanted to seek licensure in the state. And I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that what this process is talking about is permission from the locality to seek a license from the state. This is not a final step by any means. And with that, I'll throw it to Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Keith, for the great introduction. Thank you. So yes, just like you said, I think it's what I would like to accomplish today is twofold. I'll give you a quick snapshot of sort of what the current status is for cannabis application submissions for the state, and also explain Culture Craft's idea for how a cannabis business could be established successfully in the township of Teaneck. Next slide. So I'll start with a quick introduction. I'll follow that up with how we got here, a quick overview of all the steps it took to get to this point. I'll discuss why Teaneck. Then I'll segue into the opportunity in particular for Culture Craft and for the location that's been identified. And most importantly, I do want to make sure that everybody understands the social equity initiatives, and also I'll talk about the community impact. Next slide. So about myself, I'm Anthony Campbell Jr., Tony, we're Trooper. I'm a third generation of Campbells in the township of Teaneck. You probably know my father, Tony Campbell Sr. My sisters, Alima and Amina, my brother Aaron, and my mother Debbie. Went to the University of Michigan, ended up graduating with a degree in chemical engineering, biochemical engineering, and used that to to begin a career in product development, formulation for L'Oreal, J&J, and Nestle. Ended up going to business school at Duke, and after I graduated, I came back to the area and started working in management consulting. And now I'm currently the Chief Science Officer for PDH CBD. So I have experience working with cannabis and building a successful CBD brand. And we do infuse in the legal state of California and Massachusetts. So I do have some experience in the space. About Culture Craft, it's a homegrown company, not from Delaware or anything like that, from TNAC, formed in 2019. And we do product development consulting, culinary, beauty, and the cannabis space, wholly owned by myself, along with a local business partner, who's actually my friend from childhood from TNAC. Next slide, please. So the story so far, like Keith alluded to, I've been paying attention to the town council meetings and the TNAC cannabis ordinance. Once I discovered, I reached out to the council and learned a little bit more about TNAC's plans. I personally spent about a week looking in both the cannabis zone and outside the cannabis zone. And when I say a week, I really mean 40 hours. Identified a good location and established a relationship with the owner. And the next steps in particular for Culture Craft are to continue to work to partition with my retail partner, Jeff, and also with the property owner. Of course, apply for a license. And what Culture Craft desires to do is to really maintain independence from some of the larger forces. So we're also seeking local funding and sources instead of having to go outside of TNAC. Next slide. Okay, so why TNAC? Of course, this will actually empower the local community. And TNAC is already a step ahead by its citizens voting favorably and having the support of a fabulous city council, town council. So we are definitely ahead of the curve. This cannabis businesses and establishing an institution in TNAC will bring jobs, businesses, taxes, and various education opportunities that many may not realize. There's, especially when it comes to processing, there's a room to collaborate with local institutions, such as the cosmetics chemistry program at FDU, for various academic research institutions. There's so many different genetic institutions, research institutions who are looking at the plant and looking at various ways to derive value from the plant. A huge, huge, huge reason why this should happen in TNAC is the safety. Right now, we need to reduce the amount of dirty marijuana cannabis on the street. A lot. The black market's unregulated. So some of the cannabis has pesticides. I recently saw an article about some cannabis having fentanyl. And of course, there can be bugs and other irritants that's in the street level black market cannabis. It's not tested. And especially with COVID, you don't need anything that can compromise your lungs or any other part of your body. So one thing that establishing a real adult use cannabis business does is it helps push away the sales from some of the black market and provide an opportunity for those adult users to find clean cannabis. And that's important because it's been tested and it passes that quality check. Also, it can help push out some of the illegal dispensaries. I mean, throughout the course of just investigation, we actually came across one, right there in the middle of TNAC in Inglewood. Young children being able to go in there. And again, these products are untested. So we're trying to offset that. And the cannabis institution business in TNAC will help achieve that. Now, as far as the location, with respect to the light industry district in particular, it's easy to access to highway transportation, close proximity to New York City. And I'll talk about this later, but there's plans to keep it discreet and also improve the roads, in particular, the Route 4 slide off, and also that intersection. Next slide, please. So I'll talk quick, and let me just move this because I can't see the right side of my screen. Okay, so I'll talk quickly about the first opportunity, medical license expansion. So for this, you must collaborate with an existing medical license holder, like a Harmony Dispensary or like a Rise, or one of these new Northern New Jersey medical holders, Hillview, CU, and GSCC. Next slide. But for Culture Craft, we're interested in process and testing and cultivation. What you see here, that's the first part. And I will add that, what we're doing and working with our partners is we're actually creating a space and opportunity for other entrepreneurs to come in and to have an opportunity to enter the cannabis business as well. And I'll talk about that later too. Next slide. So this is very important, the social equity aspect of it. So in the eyes of the CRC, there's a preference for social equity businesses, diversely owned businesses, economic impact zone businesses. Teaneck is an incredibly diverse township, well suited in the eyes of the CRC. And what's most important, especially as Culture Craft is looking for partners and for anybody else in the space, is the state has the final decision, right? They make the final decision. They're looking at the person, they're looking at your background. So Teaneck residents will have to be diligent, especially for those that we will be looking to partner with. But it takes a village. I will say it does take a village, and in this case, that would be my family. Next slide. So as mentioned, Culture Craft has secured one location, one location that we're targeting. And again, this is a family business dedicated to impacting the community for the better, father, mother, brother, and sisters. Next slide. So this is an important one. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the measures we're going to take within the community. So the first one is safety. We'll of course have security fence and 24-hour surveillance with a 6-month digital backup. It's the standard. We also plan to start interviewing some police department candidates or retired police department candidates for chief security officer position. We want a named role in charge of security. And that's something that we take very serious because, not just for the other business owners, but also for future residents, right? We want to make sure that everyone's happy and comfortable. Social norms. We'll have strict enforcement of this policy 24/7, but there will be absolutely no consumption on premises, absolutely no loitering, and no littering. And we're making sure that there would be no cannabis institution whatsoever on the Englewood side. So in the property of interest that would be partitioned out. We also have a discretion plan, right? No invasive signage or promotions. And the plan for odor reduction using, it's essentially a system of these filters, positive pressure control, some other sciencey stuff. But essentially the air flows from the outside inside and it gets filtered. So if you're walking the dog outside, you have the baby in the stroller, you're not going to smell anything. You wouldn't even know. Cleanliness, very important for us. Not sure of the trash schedule in the area, but we'll definitely work with the township to make sure that there's a daily trash pickup system. And my father, as community manager, we've already discussed different community initiatives and trash pickup, not just local to Teaneck, but in the surrounding areas. That includes the park and also the watershed. There is a little watershed back there. There was a discussion about chickens, but I've seen some cranes and some other pretty special birds back there. So we'll be taking care of the environment at the same time, helping to clean it up. Next slide. And I did want to talk about 2 proposed community programs, which we call New Transitions and Stars and Stripes Transitions. So New Transitions is a mentorship program to mentor the youth who have faced previous prosecution for marijuana-related offenses. We want to provide education, technical training, internships, and also legal support and expungement fees, right? And one of our goals is to be able to help out and expunge legal fees at least once a quarter, right, for a candidate from TNAC. That's our commitment right now. Stars and Stripes Transitions, this is an initiative we have that we're thinking about to help veterans transition from the military to careers in cannabis. We'll offer interview prep, mentorship, and technical job trainings. Both these programs have the singular impact, which is re-entry into the workplace. And that's probably like the most difficult thing sometimes for those who've been prosecuted for some marijuana-related offenses, and also those who have served. Next slide. So thank you. I'm sure there's probably a ton of questions, but I really appreciate the time here today. Hope you learned a little bit about the current events for cannabis license submissions, and a little bit more about our plans for CultureCraft, not just now for processing, cultivation, and testing, but also creating an opportunity for partners in retail, delivery service, and distribution space. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Okay, so I'll open it up to the council for any questions that people might have. I'm trying to, Doug, if you can take down his slide so I can see everybody. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have questions of Mr. Campbell? Karen, go ahead.
I'm on mute again. Not a question, but a comment. I'm so grateful that you brought testing to our attention. It's something that we hadn't thought of when we wrote our ordinance. And the stories that we hear about contaminated marijuana and what it's doing to people are very scary. So taking everything else away and focusing on testing, to me, is the best thing that we can do for everybody in the state. So I appreciate that that's where your thoughts are. I appreciate that your thoughts are with the chemistry. And it's really been a pleasure speaking to you and dealing with you. You're very straightforward, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Councilman Kaplan.
Two things about testing. One, I just want to check. The testing would be for more than anything consumed in TNAC, right? That would be a regional testing, which would help out any towns around us that wishes to use cannabis for retail purposes as well.
Yeah, well, technically defined by the state, that would be any town in any county.
Okay. So yeah, that certainly would help. And there is an update to our ordinance because the CRC rules, when they were first defined, did not include testing in the original licensing. So when they did, we did create or ask to introduce an update for testing. So if council introduces that later, we will have that ability. One question I had for you was with regard to obviously there's cannabis currently on the streets. You know, I've walked by our parks, I've smelled it. I live close to FDU, and you know, you can go there right now. As soon as the sun goes down, you can smell it somewhere. But there's obviously a market for this stuff. And one of the things that I've read is that when the market is adults and children, there's a lot of people that are seeking out the product. When the market for adults goes away from those that are willing to sell to anybody, the only people really left, for lack of a better term, the illicit sellers are the kids and, you know, those that shouldn't get it. Is that what you have found in the industry, and what we can expect the market forces to bring once we see adult use around? And how do you envision the adult use impacting and benefiting the youth in our town?
Good question. So I'll start off by saying that having an established adult use market definitely puts, some pressure on those that operate in the black market and also the illegal dispensaries. But really it's about the quality of the product, because let's face it, like the youth are resourceful, like they're gonna find the beers underage, right? They're gonna find, some things. But if it's of a higher quality, if it's tested, that, it's that the possibility for danger or an adverse reaction, it greatly diminishes. And again, knock on wood, we've all seen the impacts of this COVID, right? It's a real thing. And just those contaminations alone and just like understanding the COVID situation that we're in is a good enough reason to understand that, this product should be clean, right? And so, just so there's two ways of going about it. One, you're putting economic pressure, right, on those bad players, right, which is going to hurt their pocket. And the second, you could only hope that, for these underage, youth who shouldn't be partaking in this because they're underage, but if they do, hopefully, they're able to source something that's of quality and something that's not going to, hurt their lungs or going to give them some other adverse reaction, because, there are many methods to consume now. So, not just your lungs, but also your digestive tract. These are important issues, and these are the youth. This is the next generation. So that's how
I'm reminded of the alcohol issues where they poisoned alcohol in order to get people to stop using it, and wound up having a lot of blind people in the 30s. So I appreciate the honesty and the answer there. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll leave it to other people that might have some questions.
There is one thing too also to say. There's a pretty big study out of California which looked at the incidence of underage driving fatalities pre and post adult use cannabis, and that number has just shot, like it's just fell off. So it's, comparing apples and oranges, I know, but we're still making pie at the end of the day. But there are other ancillary benefits to having a proper adult use market, besides just having better quality of cannabis. A lot of people also die from overuse of alcohol and, doing really bad things, and cannabis is a great way to try to offset that. And I won't even talk about the opioid epidemic, but that's a completely different issue. And for somebody who has problems with that, it's great that, you could have, if you're blessed to have a medical card, but it's also going to make your life a lot easier if there's a local place that you can go to as well and get your adult use cannabis or cannabis related products.
And the only last thing I'll mention is I did have a chance to tour the Harmony facility, and I was very pleasantly surprised. You can walk, and I encourage anybody who thinks this is incorrect to actually go there. You can walk around the entirety of the building, and they grow there, they process there, they do everything. And maybe for a second while they open the door, you can tell what's doing there, but you can walk right up to any door in the building and you will not smell anything. It was very surprising to me in a very nice way, but I really appreciated the attention to detail you mentioned in the presentation about odors and various other controls.
Other questions, Councilman Rice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Campbell, for your presentation. It was quite informative. So a lot of the questions that I have are simply because this is my first introduction to hearing any of this information. Unfortunately, not being a member of the subcommittee or ever receiving any of the information from the subcommittee as notes or agendas, this is really just the first opportunity to get any further information. So I'm still awaiting those details. But there were a number of questions that I did ask our attorney with regard to this, a lot which you did answer. I asked questions such as about waste disposal, business signage, parking, making sure that the municipality would be kept up to date for any significant changes in the operation, particularly change of ownership, connecting to the communications of our emergency medical system, our emergency services, and making sure that there's always compliance with construction code. So a lot of my questions and concerns are not necessarily with you particularly, but how we as a municipality, how we as a council will be addressing some of these issues. So for instance, in providing a resolution of proof of local support, which I imagine is what we're seeking for this evening, I'm just curious as how to we this council are going to determine the criteria that should be met by you, or someone such of your stature that's applying for a license. And will this criteria be outlined then determines whether that you are indeed a suitable cannabis business. And what is that process going to be on our end? Does anybody that comes before the council receive a proof of local support, or do we have set criteria which must be met? Clearly, your presentation seemed to cross a lot of T's and dot a lot of I's and answer a lot of questions, but this, of course, is the first of this nature. And I'm just curious, as we start to step into these waters, how we will address a lot of questions and concerns, particularly of the community. And I know the community has a lot of concerns about the location because it is, although light industry, indeed in a residential area. I want to say that I do appreciate your address of your new transition program, the Stars and Stripes, and your address of the social equity initiative, because that's of great concern to me. So I appreciate that you have in your proposal opportunities for our young folks in the community, because I believe the CRC has designated particular criteria and trying to give provisional to women, minority-owned businesses, as well as retired veterans. So I think, and I've asked the question amongst, for this council, are we going to make sure that we impose the social equity initiatives as the CRC gives us liberty to do so? So again, a lot of these questions aren't particular to you. There are a little bit more to the subcommittee and to this council as a whole as to how we are going to make sure that we launch into these waters. Although I do see that testing at least allows us to enter these waters a little more slowly than just diving in with retail. So it's at least an eye opener of information to be shared and starting this conversation.
John, I know, just a minute. John, I know you got those questions kind of at the last minute today. I don't know if you want, if it's fair for you at this point to answer. It's up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can answer several of the questions that Councilman Rice raised. As far as the criteria issue goes, the council determines their own criteria as they would for every application that comes before them. That's how councils handle criteria issues. So whatever the council determines the criteria is as a collective, that will be the appropriate criteria, and they can do that. Orally, they can do that in writing, they can do that any way that they see fit. I think there was an explanation already. One of the questions was, how is this going to be put on the agenda? Whether it was a resolution or an ordinance, as I think it was explained, it would be a resolution. And it's not for permitting cannabis establishments. It would permit them to apply for state licensing, has already been discussed. As waste disposal, which I know is another question, would be conducted in accordance with state guidelines. I mean, we have state guidelines for waste disposal, and the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, I presume, will come up with some further regulations and guidelines. Whether it's questions of signage, those are all governed by town ordinance. And we have boards that handle signage issues. So, none of this is sort of new things that are going to be that need to be addressed. These are all like any other business. They would fall within the same parameters that we would guide those businesses when they come. Anything with respect to construction, which I know is one of the other questions, would be governed by our the construction code that we follow and the township ordinances. So, I think those are the bulk of the questions that I recall from the email, other than the ones that were already, I think, answered by Mr. Campbell.
So thank you, John, for that. And I guess, as you mentioned, that the criteria would be set and determined by us as a council. And I'm just curious as to when that would take place. Are we setting the criteria prior to offering proof of support, or is this something that will be done on a case by case? I mean, are we measuring in terms of what the criteria is in order for us to offer proof
There's no rule. There's no, sorry, Councilman, I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's no rule that says how you have to set criteria. Criteria are set how you want to set them as a collective.
And
So
that's my
if-
question.
So if the council's satisfied that the presentation and the information they have is satisfactory, they can do as they see fit with respect to issuing a letter of support. If there are certain things where the council may want to, and you have in the past, establish criteria by way of a list. But I think that a lot of the issues that you asked in your questions that have been raised today by Mr. Campbell in this presentation, those would be the very same things that would be in any criteria that would be established. But I'm certainly not an expert on marijuana cannabis criteria, so I wouldn't hold myself out that way.
Councilman Cap?
I appreciate that, John. I just wanted to make sure that before we were going to offer the support, that we have indeed understood what our criteria are, because next week when we get the next letter, the applications are due for December 15th. So I imagine that there may be a number of folks. And I just wanted to know if this council or this subcommittee had suggestions for what we would be seeking when we offer proof.
Councilman Kaplan?
Sure. So I suggest as a starting off point, if you take a look at the CRC guidance that was published on November 9th, they lay out what they're looking for in terms of community criteria. And I really appreciate you bringing up the point because it's important to, start at the source docs and see what they're looking for in terms of criteria. Jumping off from that point, when you have any opportunity, whether it's how we process board members or statutory boards or various things, from time immemorial, the council has always chosen people that they thought were the best fit for a particular board, or chosen a topic or ordinance based on whatever criteria they thought were best for the town. And I think and I really appreciate Javon bringing it up, because I think it goes to sort of a philosophy of council, not necessarily particular to this, but just in general, that the people put us in a position here to vote on things. And if we feel that, remember, this is not granting this individual exclusive rights to anything. Anybody can come to us and say, I want to open up and, I'm seeking support for licensure. So if we feel that, they're not, or at least I feel that he's not going to be a detriment to the township, and his presentation covers what I feel would be a minimal appropriate amount that he could seek state licensure, at the future meetings where he's seeking either site plan review or various things, our planning boards or, other bodies can go and dig into the nitty gritty of what the final meeting is going to be. But it's a great point about the process, because we don't necessarily govern by a referendum where, our job is not to have, check boxes. He said he's going to do no odors check. So, he hit enough check boxes that we approve of this applicant. But I think if we as a council believe that he's going to be or any company is going to be a good fit, giving them the assent to go and apply for licensing would be a minimal next step.
Councilman Kaplan, I just wanted to mention that I did take those questions directly from the CRC, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, section where it says what a municipality should include in its local licensing and what they ask for in terms of proof of. So down at the league, which we just attended the conference, attending some of the workshops with this is something that I have been looking into, just because I know that this is very important to our residents, especially the location. We have given clearly the majority of this council has approved it, but I think that there's a lot of concerns in the neighborhood. I appreciate Mr. Campbell addressing those concerns, and being that he mentioned that he is third generation. I know that he is of the community, so he will have a vested interest to maintain the quality of life that I know that those residents have concern of. But I want to make sure that those community residents are clearly heard, that their concerns are clearly addressed, and anyone that would seek business would indeed address those residents' concerns.
Yes, and I would add that, we plan on having a dedicated community manager position available at all times to address any concerns and to liaise with the township and the council. So that's something that we will definitely have available for any concerns or for any comments, or just, let us know how we're doing.
And I think that was very well stated, and I appreciate you putting it out there before we decide anything with the applicant.
Yep. Yeah, I think the issue is there is a clock ticking here. And we have an individual who has a company who has been established, who appears to be able to check most of the boxes most all the boxes that the state right now, and we all know how the state works up the change without notice, checks off the boxes that they're requiring for him to proceed to be able to get a license. Whether that license will occur in such a manner that he's going to set up here, or if he's going to pursue other opportunities because for some reason Teaneck is not the place anymore. There are, I think, at last count, 15 other municipalities in Bergen County alone that have passed ordinances that will allow for various forms. Am I correct, Anthony? I think it was 15 the last time I looked. Maybe
There
more.
are a few others, but Teaneck is the place. Teaneck is the place.
No, I know it's the place. Believe me, I know it's the place. But there's also the issue of, I think the CRC is going to be putting out additional regulations. They haven't finished with their regulatory process. Am I correct?
They haven't, but we do have a fairly a good understanding of where they're going. I think they've done a phenomenal job of laying the foundation for social equity initiatives, and creating various different license types. So essentially, it's of my understanding that the state will not come in between or come in the way of the municipality. So, they're really creating opportunities for entrepreneurs, and especially with their micro business program. So in terms of the regulation, they have clearly defined regulations. And you know what? You could even look at the existing medical regulations to get a good idea of what the regulations will be for adult use market.
Yeah. And I think it's gonna be contingent upon us to take a look at those things that are listed in the CRC guidelines. That it's not an exhaustive list of things that perhaps a municipality wants to look at or wants to oversee to make sure that those things are done and done properly. Because to be honest, I have a feeling that the state is not going to have 8 to 10,000 cannabis police checking every single setting, and that we have the local responsibility, obviously, to take a look at that. So I think probably I see the process, and those of you on the subcommittee, correct me if I'm wrong. Anthony will go ahead if we pass this tonight, and Anthony will then be able to go ahead and put in his request application for a license. During that time, and that's not going to happen immediately, obviously, we can look at and talk about the things that we want to make sure are done and we're overseeing in order to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what's happening there. So I think that will be our next step after because we could make all the rules in the world, but if there's nobody with a license, it's irrelevant.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, just to piggyback off of Councilwoman Rice's comments about community and yours about next steps, one thing I would suggest is for anybody who we give community assent to apply for a license, to have community meetings where members of the community are able to go and input questions and get feedback from the applicant. So we get a good sense from the community of what they're talking about. I think Councilman Rice's idea there, especially if we have, some sort of Zoom meeting where they can submit questions in advance and then they could see him or, another representative from the company answer them and give them information and feedback would be a great idea.
Indeed.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Campbell? All right, great. Well, Anthony, thank you very much. It's been very informative. I'm sure a lot of us have learned, both the public and the council. And we really appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council. Have a good evening and enjoy the holiday.
Thank you.
You
Happy
too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And,
Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
included in the presentation packet are two sample resolutions the lawyers drew up based on the language of the CRC. If the council is amenable, they can be moved to the consent agenda for voting on later. If
Councilman
yeah.
You're talking about item E
I don't have
on the agenda?
I believe so.
Yeah, the subcommittee listed those under the committee reports by council
That's
liaison.
fine, except A, B, C, and D come.
That's fine. Okay, I'm mentioning that they were there, not necessarily to do it now. I'm just mentioning they.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so we're on to work session items. Ms. Plains? Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just had a question for the subcommittee. As you mentioned, this is time sensitive, so can we anticipate additional requests such as this, or do you have that in the pipeline? Because again, the rest of the committee, perhaps others are, but I'm not privy to any of the information as to how the subcommittee has been operating.
Well, as of right now, can answer, Mr. Mayor. As of right now, Mr. Campbell was the only applicant that made a request that said they were ready to apply for licensure and had location and everything else he needed in mind. But I would certainly expect if anybody else has, similar standing and is ready to apply, I think the first step would be to bring them to council the exact same way. And as you know, Councilwoman Rice, the subcommittee can meet with people and we could discuss things and we could hear feedback, but we can't take any action. So no resolutions, no ordinances, any of that happens in public, which is why when Mr. Campbell indicated he had enough criteria that he was ready to apply, the first step, and they only created these rules on November 9th. So the first step was to arrange with the clerk that it would be on a public noticed meeting so the public can hear from it and council can question him directly. But yes, I think that's absolutely appropriate. And anybody who applies is in the same boat. We're not in the business of picking winners and losers. We're merely stating whether somebody meets whatever threshold we feel is appropriate to apply.
And I guess that's the exact question, that threshold, which we deem is appropriate. And I just was wondering if we have a multitude of applications, are we using some type of metric or criteria to determine who we would approve and who we would not approve? So that was my basis of question.
My assumption was that, as long as they met with what you would approve, and this is, also my personal philosophy of council, we should not be picking winners and losers or who should go into a particular spot, as long as we deem them, imagine like the context of a liquor license, somebody who's constantly serving underage people, we might not deem them worthy of getting another renewal for their liquor license. But as long as we say that they are worthy of a renewal, I don't think it would be in our purview to deny it. We approve as many as meet whatever criteria we have. And then the state has various rules, as they announced on November 9th, for prioritization, including social equity components, unionization, various requirements that include a lot of the components that I know you've mentioned in the past.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, work session items, miscellaneous. Old business. New business.
Yes,
Are you gonna put it in, Karen?
it would be my pleasure to nominate Rachel Kriegel to the Pride Advisory Board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we will be looking at that appointment at the December meeting. Communications. I think maybe this is the best place to put this, but I just want to give a shout out to Cheryl Hall and her team, who did just a fantastic job last night at the Interfaith Thanksgiving event that was held at the high school. It was well received by everyone. I think it was very uplifting. I think it was just a great example of bringing people together here in Teaneck that we want to see more of. So I want to thank Cheryl and her group and everyone who attended. They did a tremendous job. So thank you very much. Okay. Now, Councilman Kaplan, committee reports by council liaisons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The library has met several times. They are currently looking for the permanent director, as far as I'm aware. The manager will have some information about their contract, I believe, and the Board of Ed has new members coming in. I had spoken with Dr. Irving. He announced last week a program for vaccinating the youth. As the public is aware, now the 5 to 12 group can go. My daughter got her first shot. I encourage everyone to go and get theirs. The Environmental Commission is seeking input from anybody who has ideas on issues that are pertaining to them. One resident came with issues for composting. They've composted thousands of pounds so far, and they're working on a program that might be able to go town-wide. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I had mentioned to the superintendent, I know last year, and Councilwoman Rice had brought it up also, that last year we had brought in the people that won from the Board of Education, and as liaison, I just wanted to reach out to them and offer a resolution in support of them and working together for the betterment of the township. That's about it for me.
Great. Other
And
reports?
obviously the cannabis subcommittee.
Any other reports from any other council liaisons? Councilman
Yeah.
Rice?
Yes, the Youth Advisory Board, we just want to make sure that we can commend them, as was noted earlier, that they received the Youth Award from the Teaneck Chamber of Commerce. They're doing great work. They just established their advisory board. Kasai Sanchez is their president and Rolando Ortega is the vice president. They're currently seeking to fulfill the position of Secretary Sergeant at Arms and Media Czar. They are working on showing a film about social justice in the school district and to continue to work on Dream Catchers initiative that they're working aside with the Chamber of Commerce. Also, I'd like to report from the advisory board from community relations. We have been able to issue a accommodation for one of the 3 members. I believe it was Wendy DeSanti, but there were 2 other members that they wished to request accommodation certifications for, Mickey Shalane as well as Pat White. They wanted to ensure that they were able to have accommodations. They also asked about a community day of prayer. Just as the mayor just mentioned, they had a wonderful Thanksgiving meeting. They wanted to seek out a community day of prayer was another thing that was noted. There were the other few items, but I just can't open up that email at the moment. Let's see. The next board meeting will be Monday, the 29th at 7 p.m. They wanted to thank the township clerk for putting the list of the Bergen County food pantries on the website. And they are finalizing a tax of commitment or pledge that they would like to community members as well as officials and leaders to take a pledge expressing that they would take a stand when they hear expressions of discrimination against any other members of the Teaneck community. And that concludes the report for the Advisory Board for Community Relations.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports from any of the groups before we get to the two on the list? Okay, hearing none. Councilman Kaplan, do you want to take those?
Yes, so as I mentioned, the Cannabis Subcommittee requested that resolutions pursuant to the CRC criteria be created and sent to the council members so they could review it with the packet. Having heard from Mr. Campbell and asking him all the questions that I thought were relevant to somebody opening in town, he's quite a smart, articulate businessman. He's third generation Teaneck, and he really gives you the sense when you talk to him one-on-one, and I think you felt it here too, that he really cares about Teaneck and he really cares about the community. So with that, I would move to put these two resolutions on the consent agenda for consideration later.
Second.
And for the benefit of the public, you'll have an opportunity to speak to them during good and welfare before they're passed.
Second.
I have a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. I mean, as I made mention my questions previously were not necessarily to Mr. Campbell, because I thought he did an excellent presentation. And to your point, Mr. Kaplan, the fact that he's homegrown, I'd much rather entertain that than someone from out of the community that doesn't have a vested interest to our quality of life. But I just think that I would love to think that we as a council set certain criteria that we are looking for, that we are expecting, so that, for instance, we would expect someone to at least have the same level of presentation. And again, we're simply offering a proof of local support, right, which is required for them to pursue their license. But I would like to think that we, as the mayor mentioned, we don't anticipate a whole lot of CRC regulation that we here would take the criteria that we set for what our expectations are to be something that we regulate. So I would just like that's something that we entertain as we move further, as we're, venturing down this slippery slope.
Any other discussion? Okay, do I need a roll call to move these onto consent?
I don't believe we need a roll call, however.
Right. Is there any objection? Then so moved, then we'll move them on to the consent agenda.
Just want to clarify for council and the public, they will be listed as, and again, these are on section E of the agenda. You can see the language in there, council. And it's 1, 2, I'm going to label it respectively, resolutions 306 and 307-2021, just for reference.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just have one further question. So it was suggested, Councilman Kaplan, about him having a community forum. Again, is that something that we would like to set as a criteria that we would like for folks to entertain the questions of our community members?
I certainly think so. And he's mentioned before when we spoke with him, we ask anybody that comes to us if they would be interested in community forums, and he's been for that the entire time. So that's a definite thing that I would expect from anybody that wants to get a location for use in Teaneck.
Thank you for that point of clarity.
Okay. Let's move on to council listed items. Council Board of Elections, New Jersey State Division of Elections, Councilman Organ.
So I listed this, I believe, on the day that I went to vote early. Teaneck was one of the locations that was gifted with early voting this year. And I was not able to cast my ballot by myself. I needed help. I then brought my mother back and her friend of similar age, and they needed help. And my 19-year-old daughter, who I would have thought would be tech savvy. All of us needed help. We asked for help. Everybody was lovely who came to work. Everybody saw who we voted for. And so I know that this type of voting is going to be the norm going forward. I am hopeful that the county and the state are doing a postmortem right now about all of the issues that everybody had. I would like us to send a letter to them and ask them what they're planning, what is going on, possibly a presentation at some point. I don't see how people who run in and out of a polling place on election day on their way to work, from work, with children are going to be able to navigate this without very long lines. So I hope that they're planning on changing this, but I'd like us to throw our voice behind a request for them to come up with a better plan.
Other discussions? Councilmember Rice, then Councilman Kaplan.
I just wanted to concur with Karen's statement because I too had challenges. In fact, had to bring Doug in the voting booth with me. And we also had one of the election workers, right? Doug, you can attest, it took the three of us quite some time to be able to vote. And I know that there were a number of phone calls made to the new supervisor of elections, as well as our county clerk. So I think it is behooves us to try to make sure that all of that is done prior to our next election. I think any opportunity to expand voting and increase voter turnout is wonderful, but I think that with early voting, that there definitely needs to be some voter education that takes place. Because I saw at one point when I was leaving, there were 5 people with the person that was voting, trying to make sure that that person could actually cast the vote in which they wanted to do, as Doug and I witnessed.
Anybody else? Councilman Kaplan?
I wholly concur. I normally vote with my kids, and I've been taking them since I could carry them in the pouch into the voting booth. And this year, I walked in with all 3 during early voting, and they said it would be over an hour, and we wound up walking out. And I went back myself in another location to try it, and it was a bit of a mess. And being an inquisitive person, I asked a lot of people, and the rep from Dominion was very nice, and he told me about some of the problems which seem to exist, some as a one-year one-off, because there are rules based on the machines in use on election day, which this year were our old machines, and those rules did not interface with the new machines. That seemingly would not be a problem next year. So there are some problems that should not reoccur, and some problems that will. The way the machines print out your ballots, and the privacy, and the entering them into the scanner, those things will certainly come up again. So what I would like is if when we send this letter to the county, we can specify the types of issues, and note that the ones that we believe will reoccur, to have a representative from the county offer to come to our meeting, so that we can get someone who's knowledgeable about this and can speak to it. So not only we, but our residents can be informed as to the issues going forward. And if they're amenable to getting feedback in a way that can make the system better for everybody in the future, all the better.
Further discussion?
I just want to detail to everyone also that, and I know it's been reverberated, but while we're here on the subject, as of right now, it is definitely decided that the state will be using these new formats for our further elections. And like everyone is saying, there were a lot of concerns here in Teaneck, and I'm reverberating my concerns with all of you also. We need to make sure that the state and county stay on top of all that.
All right. Is there, well, let's start with this. Is there an objection for us to sending correspondence to supervisor of elections? I assume there isn't.
I was talking with Councilwoman Organ, and I guess the recipients of these letters should probably be the 3 county election offices, along with the Division of Elections within the state. So it would be 4 recipients.
Okay. So then what I would then suggest is, well, we can do it one of 2 ways. In fact, let's do it this way. Can everyone send to Doug those items that you feel are important that we need to highlight in a correspondence to those individuals and board? And then we can craft a letter. I can sign it as mayor representing the council with a request for feedback, response, Karen, you indicated you were thinking about maybe a presentation of some type?
It would depend on the response. You know, if they're making changes, then that's great. If they're not, then I feel like we should hold them accountable and ask our questions and find out why not. So
Okay.
the
First
letter,
off,
to start with the letter is fine.
Okay, so if you're okay with that, everybody send those ideas to Doug. We'll craft the letter, I'll sign it. We'll send it out to those individuals, and then we'll see what the response is. That
Great.
good enough? That good?
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, next item, proposed resolution urging state legislature to enact comprehensive liquor license reform. Councilman Pagan.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is supported by the New Jersey League of Municipalities and the New Jersey Association of Counties, and asks our legislature to consider reforming some of our liquor license laws, which haven't been changed for the most part since the 1950s. Some statewide lawmakers have noted how positive liquor license reform could help our downtowns grow more economically and will also help current license owners grow more economically. So I would like to make a motion to add this resolution to our December 14th council agenda for approval.
Second.
Second. Are there any objection to moving this on the December 14th agenda? Seeing none, then we will put it on the December 14th agenda.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Excellent work.
Okay. Next, prohibition on smoking within various municipal properties of the township. Council members Organ and Kaplan.
Did you want to start on this one?
Go for it.
So one of the things that was brought up now that we're going to be having cannabis ordinance in town was smoking in general. So there are currently no rules regarding smoking of cannabis in various areas. I mean, walking down the street and whatnot. And the obvious thing to me was, especially considering secondhand smoke for cannabis, was that straight smoking of cannabis should be prohibited in parks, playgrounds, sidewalk areas, the common areas of the township. The open question is, if you're doing it for cannabis, should it be done for for cigarettes? Obviously, there's no contact high issue, but I mean, there's certainly detriments to cigarette smoke. So that question was brought up, and I think it's a no-brainer to ban cannabis smoking. I would not include vaping with that, as the issues are a bit different, but actual smoking of leaf cannabis, I would be comfortable taking out of the public areas. The open question was what to do about other types of smoking, and just figured I would bring it up as a topic for council discussion.
Keith, I think it's a great idea, but I had a question. Wasn't there something in the state regs or whatever that prohibited cannabis in public places? Did I read that correctly?
Yes, there is. And yet, what happens when you come across, somebody was smoking in public, and then it's out. By the time a cop rolls up on this, are they really going to see it happening? So within stores, are they allowed to have it within a store? A certain distance from storefronts on Cedar Lane. These were open questions, and I guess I'll put it to council on what is currently allowed and not allowed. But from what I was hearing collectively on the street, there was not a prohibition, so to speak, from people necessarily smoking in public.
Dean, do you have some comments?
Yeah, just quickly, that the CREAM Act does not permit people to smoke or vape cannabis in any public space or an indoor public space, and that's defined by statute. Public smoking laws also apply to cannabis smoking, and we as a municipality certainly can enact additional restrictions on public consumption if we want, so we certainly can make it much stricter.
Okay, so what is the
Okay.
council?
If that's the case,
So you're okay at this point with what we have?
I'm okay with that. Yep.
Okay, all righty.
Did you want to speak, Karen, about cigarettes as well, or?
How much more strict, Dean, could we make it?
Well, I think, again, I think this would cover inside a store, which is considered a, correct me if I'm wrong, John, a quasi-public or public place. So it would apply to that. I don't know. I'd have to give that some thought, how much stricter we could make it.
Okay.
How strict are you thinking, Councilwoman?
I was at work today and a door opened, and for the next, because it's cold out, it draws the air in. And for the next 20 minutes, we smelled cannabis. I don't know what somebody was doing outside, whether it was legal or it wasn't, but it was horrible. And so I don't know. I don't think anybody who's not partaking in it or doesn't want to, same with cigarette smokes, should have to deal with the effects of it or the smell of it. So I just want to make sure that we're protecting people in the right of way, and that nobody has to deal with this. You know, it's legal. The state voted on it. They've approved it. Knock yourself out if it's something you like, but if it's for the people that don't, they shouldn't have to deal with secondhand smoke. It's just not a good smell.
Okay, so why doesn't John and Dean get together and see what can be done, maybe to tighten up some things here in town? And they can come back to us with something that hopefully would meet your needs then. Okay.
Good.
Councilmember Rice?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, as we continue down this slippery slope, that I hope that there's going to be community education, right? So because it's legal, to make sure that the community understands what the parameters are and what the restrictions are. And I hope that we will do a good job of communicating that by ordinance and community education, drug education. I just hope that once we open these doors, that we will be prepared to address all of those issues and not make it an unnecessary nuisance and now a new detail for our police department with all these additional restrictions.
Okay. All right, everybody good? Okay. And the last one, I'm not sure if this was already taken care of, Councilman Rice, but social equity initiatives and cannabis licensing, have you already?
Yeah, I think for the most part, especially with the presentation, it was addressed because I just wanted to make sure that, as Dean mentioned with the CREAM Act, it does not prohibit municipalities from developing their own initiatives, and which is what I kept alluding to, especially as it promotes equity in the cannabis industry. And as was mentioned, we do have a very diverse community and there are a lot of social equity opportunities. So I just wanted to make sure that this council was interested in taking advantage of the opportunity to promote equity in the cannabis industry as we are opening this door, that these would be some of the parameters that we would set to ensure that we are promoting equity in the industry.
Okay.
Even providing opportunities for those who need to have their records expunged, being able to take advantage of job opportunities, all of those things that would protect those individuals who got into the market a little too early, who still have records, while other people are poised to reap the benefits of this new industry that is now legal.
Okay. All right, Township Managers report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm certainly longing for the day when I do not have to include COVID-19 as part of my manager's report, but just to update everyone on some statistics in town and where we're at. All adults, of course, are now eligible for booster shots for the vaccine. Everyone 18 years or older is now eligible at any vaccine location, as long as it's been 6 months after their last Pfizer or Moderna shot, or at least 2 months after their one Johnson & Johnson shot. Some of the recommendations that have come across my desk with the holidays approaching and the Delta variant continuing to impact the state. Everyone that's eligible is certainly encouraged to get your booster shot. Any individual can get boosted with any of the 3 available vaccines, no matter which type you initially received, which is good news. We want everyone, of course, to stay safe this Thanksgiving and holiday season. Although the availability and the use of effective vaccines promises a return towards normalcy for this year's holiday season, it's still important to continue taking these steps to lessen the risk for you, certainly your family and your friends. Get vaccinated with the flu shot and a COVID-19 booster if you're eligible. We encourage everyone to do that. Certainly celebrate your holidays with those who are fully vaccinated outdoors or in places with good ventilation. Again, these are recommendations that are coming from the Jersey State Department of Health. Wear a mask indoors if unvaccinated. Wear a mask in crowded indoor spaces and high-risk settings, regardless of the vaccination status. Get tested for COVID-19, of course, if you have any symptoms or in close contact with anyone who's presumed to have COVID-19. And what I tell all my employees, stay home if you feel sick. Holy Name right now is 8 COVID patients in-house. No one is on a ventilator, which is great news. However, all those 8 that are in the hospital are unvaccinated. To get your booster shot, you can visit vaccine.holyname.org. Staff from Holy Name is set up at 3 University Plaza in Hackensack to give the booster vaccination. Again, we moved from operations from the Rota Center to 3 University Plaza in Hackensack, which is right across the river. Teaneck has 4,588 cases. We're up 169 over the past 29 days, and that's an average of 5.8 daily. Children between the ages of 5 and 17 represent slightly more than the 35% of all cases, totaling 59. Of the 59 cases reported among children, 60% are among children ages 5 to 11, which totals 45, versus 12 to 17, which totals 17. Our deaths in the town remain flat at 123. The lighting of the menorah, onto some good news. The lighting of the menorah on the municipal green, as the mayor mentioned, is scheduled for Monday, the 29th. Mayor, it's at 5:30. The menorah lighting is at 5:30, not 6 o'clock. All are welcome. I'm certainly looking forward to see who is put up in a bucket truck this year. I did it the previous year and would prefer not to do so again. So I'm interested to see who will go up there. There's going to be plenty of music, singing. It should be a good night, good evening. Then we're going to have the lighting of the municipal Christmas tree, and that's scheduled for Monday, December 6th at 6 p.m. I ordered some additional Christmas decorations that will go nicely with our fairly new tree. There's going to be refreshments that night, hot chocolate, cookies, local clergy, the singing of Christmas carols. I'm going to try to pull off an ugly sweater contest with prizes for first, second, and third place, and possibly a visit from a surprise guest. I'm happy to say that the Teaneck PBA and the Fire FMBA are partnering with my office, and they're going to be accepting unwrapped toys that evening, which will be distributed before Christmas to local families. Any groups or organizations that wish to assist certainly can reach out to my assistant, Mr. Luis DePaz, at 201-837-1600 extension 1003. So we're trying to make it a little more, these events for the menorah lighting and the Christmas tree lighting, a little more robust, and looking forward to people coming out, turning out. I'll be putting out some media releases with some additional information, and no pun intended, it's a little bit of a fire drill, but we'll get it done. The project updates, the 2020 road resurfacing project is now complete. Between capital and grants that the township received, we resurfaced 37 streets, along with one municipal parking lot, the main one here at 818 Teaneck Road, which now also has an EV charging station. Conducting a final review of municipal streets scheduled as part of the 2021 road resurfacing project, which will commence in the spring of 2022. The list is going to be publicly published very shortly. And it's going to include funds from our capital budget, grant approvals, anticipated grant approvals, and curb-to-curb utility work under the responsibility of Suez. So we're looking at 39 total locations, and we've certainly made a significant impact on road infrastructure over the last 3 years. The work in 2022 is also going to include the redesign of the Court Street Municipal Parking Lot, which will add 21 additional parking spaces to the existing spots there now, which is great news. And this lot is going to become a one-way, Court Street is going to become one-way traffic, which is eastbound, and that's going to make it much safer for that area of OT Park, for residents to park. We're going to do some redesign and probably remove that island there. So it's going to be a real nice design, and we will also put in an EV charging station there as well. Every municipal lot that we do on a yearly basis, and that's the goal, do one every year, will include an EV charging station, and to make it accessible to those with those type of vehicles. We're in the process right now of trying to secure an energy consultant for the Community Choice Aggregation Project. That's in the works. The bid for the new police dispatch radios is going out very shortly. We anticipate receiving all bids by the 9th of December and awarding the contract on or about the 14th of December. Fire Station 4, the bid for that work is going to be out by next week. We'll award that contract in January, and work for that station will commence immediately. And we'll have to work out some arrangements with the fire department because that building will not be able to be used during that time of work. We're awarding the contract to Downs Tree Service this evening for work on Penn Avenue. That work will commence immediately. We're authorizing the purchase and installation of a band shell at OT Park this evening, so that project is moving along nicely. We're authorizing the purchase and installation of dugouts of OT Park this evening, the middle field and the Lancer Field, which desperately needs those new structures. We're also awarding a contract this evening for window replacement at the municipal building. The demolition work at the municipal building will commence fairly soon. The roof and gutter installation is underway, so we're doing a lot of upgrades at the municipal building, much needed upgrades. And once those upgrades are done, we'll be able to repair the ceiling in the foyer area and also in council chambers. The plan is to put new carpeting in there as well, and just to do some little TLC for the council chambers before we go back to live sessions. The bid for environmental remediation and demolition for the basement, as I just mentioned, is being finalized. That's going to go out shortly. We continue to see delays in receiving the playground equipment at Tuyun Park. I'll keep everyone posted when additional information is received. We are hoping to have this project done by now, but the distributor of the playground equipment has been delayed in forwarding that equipment to us. But I'll keep everyone posted on that. Work continues on Linden Avenue by Suez to replace the main water line. As they get closer to really having to shut that road down, we'll be putting out additional information to the residents in the affected area. A couple other good things are moving forward with the safety and traffic calming, striping on Tryon Avenue, Garrison Avenue, and West Anglewood Avenue by Windsor Road. We had a nice meeting with the residents on Tryon, and thank you for the Krispy Kreme donuts, the glazed donuts, which are my favorite. But we had a great meeting with the residents there. We listened to their concerns and were able to make some immediate changes. On Tryon Avenue, we're going to be doing the thermoplastic rumble strips in various locations. We received delivery today of our speed radar machines, which two are going to be mounted on Tryon Avenue and traffic going east and traffic going west near the area of Hargraves. In 2022, the plans are to install a tabletop pedestrian crosswalk, which is going to force cars to slow down or they're going to bottom out. Basically, that's just a fancy name for a raised crosswalk. That flat top design slows drivers more gradually because it's 3-inch grade over 5 feet. A work order was also submitted for new speed limit signs and for the trimming of some trees that are blocking stop signs in that area. So we're trying to address some of the things we can do immediately in that Tryon and Hargraves area to control traffic. Garrison Avenue is going to be restriped with thermoplastic paint from Beverly Road to Route 4. Again, this is all work that's going to be done before the end of the year. To alleviate some of the traffic buildup on West Anglewood Avenue by Windsor Road, we're creating a separate left-hand turn lane from West Anglewood East to Windsor Road going north. That will also be done very soon. I'm also approving the installation of 2 new crosswalks at Herrick Avenue and Van Buren. That's going to have LED pedestrian crossing signs. We need 1 ADA ramp there as well. We're going to paint, they call them zebra lines, which are a little more visible. And this is going to be part of the 2021 road resurfacing capital budget, which will commence in the spring of 2022. The traffic signal at Queen Anne Estate that we received some complaints about, we need to purchase 2 cameras as the ground detectors are malfunctioning at that intersection. These cameras are mounted on top of the traffic lights, and they're considered sensors to control traffic timing. And this project's going to have to be added to the 2022 budget because that expense is probably over $20,000. I previously spoke about Windsor Road, a new crosswalk between the southwest and southeast corners of Windsor Road and Briarcliff with curb ramps and a pedestrian crosswalk. That's going to require some new sidewalk in that area and the addition of rapid flashing beacons. This project is going to have to be included in the 2022 capital. It comes at a cost of about $40,000. All emergency repair work on Grenville was complete. This includes the cul-de-sac, Grenville and Fayette intersection, and entrance to DPW on Windsor Road. This is all due to the Ida-related storm. We had emergency repairs at 676 West Anglewood Avenue. That job is complete. There was a sinkhole that developed in the area that needed emergency repair. This is very important as well. Please visit our website for information on DOT's virtual public information center meetings. That's going to take place between November 29th and December 10th regarding the Route 4 Hackensack River Bridge replacement project. This is a major project. Residents can go to www.rt4hackensackriverbridge.com to review a presentation, project information, and to submit comments or questions. The purpose of this project is to replace the bridge, which was built in 1931, while maintaining transportation and pedestrian access between Teaneck and Hackensack. So a major project that's going to be underway. It's going to take several years to complete, but certainly they have the educational component at rt4hackensackriverbridge.com. I encourage everyone to go there to take a look at what's going to happen. The CFO has submitted and has approved the necessary paperwork for payments to be processed through the Spatial Data Logic Department Management Software. Departments are in the process of completing their portals before we launch the system to residents. The CFO is now working on completing the requisite paperwork for the RecPro software. Before that goes live, we anticipate having both systems go live prior to the close of this year. The citizen portal for Spatial Data Logic is up and running for the building department. Residents can visit the township's website, go to the building department section and create an account to conduct business with staff at the building department. You'll be able to update or apply for a permit application. However, the payment portal is not active yet. The health department will go online as soon as training is completed. That should be done by the end of next week. We're going to be accepting online payments for both departments through Spatial Data. I was told by Friday, December 3rd, as Municipay completed the process of setting up our accounts. Residents are going to be able to use the citizen portal as a reporting system. SDL, Spatial Data Logic, is going to replace Reportit, which turned out not to be as effective as we thought it would be, and also the portal on the township's website to report maintenance issues as well. So Spatial Data Logic will replace this through the citizen portal, and you'll be able to monitor the status of your complaint, the work order actually being processed, where they are with it. So it's going to be far more effective, efficient, and I encourage everyone to register for Spatial Data Logic on the citizen portal, and that's a great tool for all of us. We're waiting on delivery of the ATM machine. Diebold, who is the installer, has told us that this will take place in mid-December. So we'll have that delivery set up and the ATM machine will be mounted or installed in the municipal building hallway there for everyone to use. Happy also to say, really in closing, that all 8 collective bargaining agreements are basically settled. Most are for 5-year agreements. Certainly going to help all of us in our budgeting process. It avoids retroactive pay. It avoids retroactive reporting to the state, which is very time consuming for our staff. So I'm happy to say the unions, all 8 unions, very cooperative with the township. I think we're happy. I think the unions are happy. And again, it's going to help us out in the long run for budgeting purposes and not something we have to worry about for at least 3 to 5 years to come. So that's the end of my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Dean. A lot of work getting done here, and I'm especially congratulate you on getting those contracts done. That's going to make it a much better way to budget going forward, and we'll be able to have a little more cost certainty as we get into those. So well done with that. Okay, Township Attorney, have any report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report other than what we was discussed in closed session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to formal meeting items. Public hearing and adoption of ordinances. Have the clerk read the titles of the ordinances, please.
Okay, good evening. Sorry, one second here. All right, so we are considering a few ordinances for adoption this evening. Lost my page. All right, first up, for second reading, we have ordinance number 48-2021, an ordinance amending Appendix 3, fees and charges for township services of Chapter 2 of the Township Code entitled Charter Administrative Code relating to administrative fees for police details as heretofore amended by ordinance number 21-2016. We have ordinance number 49-2021, amending section 36-11.2 of Division 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 36 entitled Traffic, the Township Code, adding restricted on-street parking spaces for the handicap at 17 West Englewood Avenue. We have ordinance number 50-2021, amending section 36-21, time limited parking to Division 3 limited parking of Article 2 parking of Chapter 36 Traffic of the Township Code, respecting time limited parking in the Palisade Avenue municipal parking lot. Ordinance number 51-2021, authorizing the sale of an easement upon a portion of block 4701 lot 1 and block 4901 lot 2, block 4702 lot 1 and block 4704 lot 1 to PSE&G pursuant to NJSA 40A:12-13. We have ordinance number 52-2021, a bond ordinance providing for various 2021 capital improvements by and in the township of Teaneck in the county of Bergen, state of New Jersey, appropriating $5,290,000, therefore, including 2 grants totaling $288,521, and authorizing the issuance of $4,762,200 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Last but not least, we have ordinance number 53-2021, amending ordinance 19-2020, entitled an ordinance authorizing a special emergency appropriation pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-53, section H, for the payment of contractually required severance liabilities of the township of Teaneck, county of Bergen, state of New Jersey.
Thank you, Doug. Does anybody on council have any comments they want to make on these particular ordinances? Okay, seeing none, then I will open up for a public hearing. That this hearing is just for these ordinances that were just read. These are not for ordinances going on later or anything else you want to discuss in the other public session. This is just for the ordinances that the clerk just read.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, welcome public to November 23rd council meeting of the Township Council. Just reminding everyone that you have 3 minutes to speak your piece on these matters. And again, like the mayor elegantly mentioned, these are just for the ordinances that we just read for second reading for adoption this evening. I saw a couple people raise their hands and then they put them down. If you have something for good and welfare, please don't go anywhere. That's coming in just a few minutes. Again, just for the ordinances, 3 minutes. If you are not able to fit your thoughts in that 3 minutes, I will cut you off and you are welcome to email me, your township clerk, Doug Roussillon, at clerk@tnecnj.gov, and I will copy and paste your thoughts verbatim into the minutes so nothing is missed. And I see Mr. Chuck Powers. I'm bringing him in. Feel free to unmute, sir.
Yeah, very, very quickly on ordinance 53, 2021. Again, this year, we're going to be asking the Finance Committee of the Division of Local Government Services to grant us an emergency appropriation for about $1 million. It looks to me, it sounds to me, from what I can tell from the departmental means, we're going to be facing significant retirements on a continuing basis. And at some early point, the state's going to say the special appropriations process can't continue to be a rationale. We have to begin to figure out how we're going to capture those costs closer to where it is that we incur them. And secondly, this is actually a question of information rather than anything else than that. On the easement that was approved on June 23rd by the State House Commission, there were a series of conditions established and handed over to New Jersey DEP. I watched that State House Commission meeting over. It was done over Zoom, and I'm trying to figure out when is it. I believe there are a series of steps that the township now needs to take before it can have available to it the money that the township will now receive from PSE&G now that that easement is granted and the process with the state for diversion is nearing completion. I hope someone can explain just what it is that those additional steps, because I think that they are complicated. They're going to involve knowing whether or not the property that the township wants to turn over from what it has in its ownership, but is not yet parkland, whether it's park worthy or not contaminated and so forth, and what its value is as we try to get access to some of that money that PSE&G will make available by virtue of this diversion. I hope that someone can answer that for me. It's a question of information, not of criticism. Thank you.
I thank you, Dr. Powers. I see no other hands up, so I'll close the public hearing. I'll see if anyone else has anything else to say with respect to these ordinances from council. Okay. All right, seeing no one, then I'm going to ask for a motion to move.
Motion Schwartz.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to move ordinance number 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53, 2021. Doug, can you call the roll, please?
With pleasure. Councilwoman Rami Rice,
Yes.
Councilman Began,
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan,
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Oh, it looks like he might have dropped off here.
Okay.
Mayor Dunleavy.
Yes.
All right, adopted. I will note that the Deputy Mayor Katz is away. All right, publications going out for those.
All right. So now we move into public good and welfare. Public input is accepted on any and all matters. Doug, you can take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Again, members of the public, residents of Teaneck, our neighbors, you have 3 minutes to discuss your question, comment, or concern. And again, I don't like cutting people off, so I will unfortunately just have to log you off once your 3 minutes is up. And if you are unable to fit your thoughts and comments into the 3 minutes allotted, please email me at clerk@tnecnj.gov, and I will happily copy and paste your statement verbatim into the minutes so nothing is missed. First hand we see is Maria Castano. Maria Castano, whenever you are ready.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Unfortunately, tonight I feel disappointed that such a negative light was cast upon backyard chicken keeping. Even though there were both positive and negative points given, the presentation was extremely heavy on the negative. In my own personal research, I have learned that you can keep a small amount of chickens in a way that will not be bothersome to neighbors, nor be a menace to our health. All birds make noise. Teaneck has an abundance of birds that fly into our yards and poop and chirp. No one is threatened by this. When kept responsibly, you do not need to worry about predators. A person that takes the time to invest in chicken keeping will make sure they are clean and safe from wildlife. There are simple steps that can be taken to do this. I would like to warn about the comment made about the need to heat a coop in winter. You should never heat a coop as it is a fire hazard and completely unnecessary. Chickens will naturally adapt and will survive the winter just as wild birds do. Don't take my word for it. Check out some positive and knowledgeable sources, such as Kathy, the chicken chick, who offers a wealth of information from experience and who has published a book on the topic as well. As to disease, all pets carry diseases. We don't pick up our dog or cat's poops with our bare hands, and we wouldn't do that with chicken either. People are very knowledgeable about hand washing, and I expect they could handle that. I hope you will look into this matter with an open mind and not with fear. Time and again, our backyard chicken supporters have voiced that we would like a new ordinance created. We hope you will create a fair ordinance supporting the chicken keeping of chickens. And I encourage the council to do more research on the matter in a positive light. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I'm now bringing in Linda Burns. Linda Burns.
Hi, good evening. This is
Good
Linda
evening.
Burns. I'm speaking as a resident and not as a member of the Board of Ed. I just wanted to thank Dr. Miranda Diaz and Mr. Campbell for their very thoughtful and thought-provoking presentations. I would hope that going forward, we as a township and also you as a town council would adopt this as a model for introducing ordinances or any controversial topics going forward, because this would help elevate the conversation beyond conjecture, speculation, and negativity, and really help us understand the pros and cons of every issue that's being offered. I also, in particular to the cannabis ordinances, I would encourage the town council to establish objective criteria for all applicants so that they're consistent and clear and understandable, so that everybody knows what the rules are going forward. And also, I would also encourage Teaneck to be a good neighbor to the municipalities around us, and in particular Englewood. When you are trying to target a specific area that's almost entirely encompassed by Englewood as a cannabis zone, with is just about 100 yards from a playground, that's not necessarily being a good neighbor. And when I'm when I'm a good neighbor, if I'm having a loud party, I will be sure to inform all of my neighbors that this is going on, and also invite them to the party so that they can also have a good time. But I don't think that that happens with Englewood. And lastly, I would also like to thank everybody who ran for Board of Ed. It's a very thorny, thankless volunteer position. We don't get paid, but I also want to congratulate Dennis Klein, Jonathan Rodriguez, and Victoria Fisher for winning the positions in the Board of Ed, and thank them for their service. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Linda.
I'm now bringing in Elayat Hirschkorn. I hope I pronounced that properly. I apologize. Elayat Hirschkorn. Give it a second. Lagging a little bit.
Give a second.
Elayat?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. Oh, terrific. Thank you very much. My name is Ayelet Hirschkorn. I live on Grange Road in Teaneck by Holy Name Hospital. The neighbors, as you know, have been working very diligently to try to reach an agreement with Holy Name Hospital to settle what has been a very long-standing dispute between Holy Name Hospital and the neighbors. I know Councilman Schwartz has been very involved in trying to settle the dispute, and we have been acting in very good faith to try to bring forward to the table some very reasonable and rational proposals that would resolve all issues. Unfortunately, Holy Name continuously moves the goalposts. They have not been acting in good faith. They've been acting in a way that shows that they have absolutely no intention in really resolving these matters and signing an agreement with the neighbors. There is on the upcoming planning board, there's the proposal to rezone some of the areas that are residential by Holy Name to make them into the hospital zone, and I request that that be taken off, and that the town continue to put pressure on Holy Name Hospital to act in good faith so we can reach a resolution. And until that happens, the matter should not be brought forward before the planning board. Thank you.
You. And bringing in Jose Zenon. Jose Zenon.
Yes, good evening.
Hello, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Doug. Again, good evening. Thank you for council member for serving. Appreciate your service. Just a quick question. I noticed this years ago, but it hit me now because my son brought it to my attention. As you drive down Teaneck Road, and again, Teaneck looks lovely with the decoration. I noticed over the years that the decoration stops in Tryon. You know, in Teaneck Road going from south, I guess, to north, going towards Bergenfield. And the decoration, the wreath that we have going up and down Teaneck, it stops in Tryon, and there's a large stretch of the no decoration from there to, I guess, Ward Plaza. So I think I brought this up years ago. I never got an answer, but it hit me because I was driving down, you know, I drive up and down Teaneck because I live in Armory Plaza right across Palisade Avenue. And my 4-year-old son noticed in the car and said, why, you know, because I guess 4-year-old, I guess a child just looking at the street coming up and down, and he asked me the question, and I never had the answer for it. So my question to the council, why decoration stops there and it's a whole stretch of from Tryon to Ward Plaza, the decoration stops, which I think is a lovely thing, but I don't understand why it stops in that stretch of Teaneck Road. And if so, if there's a budget issue or something, I would like to at least propose that we consider continuing, because Teaneck Road we are part of Teaneck, and it goes all the way down to Ward Plaza. I think Liberty Teaneck stops. I don't have the map in front of me, but it was an interesting observation and question that I had for the council. So again, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Jose. I'm bringing in David S. David S. If it's not a problem, please state your name for the record, David S.
Feel free to unmute, David S. David S.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Please
Yes.
state your name for the record. It's not a problem.
David Schlossel. The
Hello,
only
David.
reason there isn't a signed agreement with the hospital at this point is because the hospital doesn't seem to want one. There was an MOU that the town representative and we thought reflected the understanding of the parties, only to find out that the goalposts moved. Richard Price thought he had an understanding and was frustrated by the hospital's stances. We thought we had an understanding in July after several meetings, only to have the goalposts moved again. From the end of July until October, in spite of repeated requests by us to meet, there was not one meeting or substantive communication. The last 2 months have been mostly refusals to be responsive, interspersed with moving goalposts. You have trained them to pocket gains, say no, and get more. They won't sign an agreement because you are intent on moving ahead anyway. Why should they sign an agreement? You will approve what they want without one. To be clear, we have not moved the goalposts except toward them. The agreement we sent to them a month ago is one that a township official thought could have been drafted by the hospital. While there are positives and negatives in the master plan amendment, make no mistake, no matter how you choose to mansplain it to us, the revised master plan is terrible for the neighborhood. The reason is that the very few good things in it can be easily changed by the township or by variance. There are no long-term binding commitments by anyone. The only thing that protects the neighborhood and makes the plans even remotely palatable is the context of having permanent deed restrictions for everything west of the current hospital building and an actual agreement with the neighbors. The basics of the deal have always been very simple. In exchange for the hospital being allowed to expand into the neighborhood and increase its campus by 1 million square feet with tremendous height and density allowed, the remaining buildings will not get any higher or closer, and the situation to the west of the current hospital buildings will be permanently frozen. That's a net negative for the neighborhood and a great deal for the hospital, and the only thing preventing it is the hospital is not willing to say yes. If the hospital is not willing to make that deal today, there is no reason to expect that if you move the process forward, no matter what the hospital says or does, that the deal will happen in a month or 2 or ever. This is very personal. It is our homes in our neighborhood. The hospital shouldn't get even 1 centimeter without an agreement. If you stop the process until this gets done, it will get done, and the process can move very quickly. I fear that without your support and steadfastness, this is going to spin in a direction no one should want. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm bringing in Denise Belcher. Denise Belcher, feel free to unmute whenever you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, 3 minutes, miss.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I want to start by saying thank you for the presentations tonight. The Sherman Antitrust Act is a federal law which prohibits activities that could restrict commerce and competition in the marketplace. On August 10th, I asked during a council meeting which businesses had been invited to take part in the cannabis business in town and what was the process in order to apply. As an active member of the African American Chamber of Commerce and former president of the Teaneck Chamber of Commerce, to date, in speaking with businesses, no businesses that I've spoken with has received any invites or information sessions as pertains to the cannabis business. The cannabis subcommittee and its ordinance is totally cloaked in secrecy. It represents a restriction of fair trade. We are business owners in town and we have a right to know about business opportunity. Why were businesses excluded from any information sessions? Who are the businesses that were invited? Why wasn't all businesses invited into an information sessions? Why won't the subcommittee provide exact details on ways in which to know about the process in which to apply? These exclusionary practices are dangerous. No details of what the criteria is, nor application, nor process to apply has been disclosed. This is simply wrong. No announcement similar to an RFI or RFP, similar to what our town manager reports on in terms of receiving contracts or letters of interest, has been provided to the business community. The CRC has taken great efforts to address social inequity, but Teaneck Council's subcommittee on cannabis, their action speaks to exclusionary practices, absence of a clear, fair, and equitable process for inclusion. For all of the well-intentioned things that the CRC has done, we need to be aware of that federal laws prohibit cannabis in close proximity to parks, churches, and residents. It just so happens that this Alfred Avenue location is within yards of parks, churches, and residents, but it just so happens to be in an African-American community. Seems like the residents are galvanizing their efforts because of a lack of transparency. So before any additional votes on cannabis should be taken by the council, I request that a business symposium session, an information session be convened so that Teaneck residents and Teaneck businesses are made aware as to what the exact process is. This is simply the right and ethical thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. I'm bringing in Eliza G. Eliza G, please state your name for the record if it's not a problem.
Hello.
Eliza G, how are you?
Hello. My
Please
voice
state your name for the record if it's not a problem.
Yeah, of course. Elisa Grotko.
Grotko,
My
thank
voice
you.
is a
3
little
minutes.
sore, so I apologize.
It's all
so
good. Just don't yell at me.
I want to speak about chickens. I have to be honest, I was looking forward to Dr. Miranda Diaz's talk today because I was under the impression that we were going to be having somebody who was an expert in understanding, how to have chickens in our town in a responsible way and in a healthy way. And with all due respect to her, I'm sure she knows a lot about different health matters, but she does not know a lot about having chickens. Much of what she reported on, you could get from any simple Google search, much of which was on a homesteading website that seemed to be copy and pasted. I definitely had more hopes for information. I'd like to speak about some of the negatives she spoke about, which we've brought up plenty of times in terms of the concerns that people have, but particularly when we think about the noises. If you don't have roosters, chickens are not noisy. Their coo or whatever you call it is a 40 decibel sound, which is about the sound of conversation that we make. Hence cluck, they peep softly all day long, just like other birds. And then they go to bed at dusk and remain quiet all night. Unfortunately, even my neighbor's dog who goes out at 6:30 in the morning every morning, who barks for 20 minutes, will be worse than a chicken is. The smell that people keep talking about, a small flock of 4 or 5 chickens will poop about as much as an average dog, and their coop won't smell if it's kept clean. This is where crafting a good chicken law comes into play. And if the law only allows chickens in a quote, well-maintained coop, quote, end quote, then a chicken owner with a messy, filthy, smelly coop is out of compliance and can be cited under law. And lastly, predators. I understand that people are really worried about predators. We live in Teaneck. There are predators all over the place. There are a lot of little animals that bring predators all over the place. But you're right, chickens are food, right? And there is a danger. And it should be the responsibility of the chicken owner to keep his or her chickens safe from predators. just like it is for cat owners or dog owners or rabbit owners. There's ample advance available on how to do so. Even though a careless owner may lose chickens to predators, I fail to see how this is a municipal problem, as it is not something that causes a nuisance to anyone except for the chicken owner. Lastly, what kind of made me doubt Dr. Miranda Diaz's talk today is just her talk about chickens in the cold. If she really did her research on chickens, she know that many chickens are bred for the cold. They're actually a breed of chicken called Jersey Giants that are literally bred.
Eliza, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes were up. My email is clerk@tnecnj.gov, and you can email me there any comments that you were unable to fit in. I am bringing in call-in user 1. Your hand is up. Oh, sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button. I meant to ask you to unmute. Try it again, please. I'm sorry. And please state your name for the record as it's not listed here. Sorry, call-in user 1. Call-in user 1, can you hear me?
Yes,
Is that Miss Baker?
yes, it is. Margaret Baker.
I recognize that voice anywhere. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm calling about the development here on Alfred and Decatur. First of all, the developer undoubtedly hasn't been told about what trees to cut. He cut 2 township trees and he put the roots in the ground. Also, he put up a fence around the property that has a green lining that impedes the traffic on Alfred Avenue. The fence and the lining comes all the way to the sidewalk, and I know that's illegal. He has it also on Tygen, and you can't see when you get there to come out those 2 streets. So I wish someone from the town would inform him of the traffic violation. He also knocked out the speed limit sign and the no parking sign on Decatur. Decatur is already a racetrack. So with no sign for speed and nothing for parking, it's even worse. I called DPW and reported it 2 days in a row that the sign was down and it needed to be put back up. It's still down. So those problems there are increasing the problems we already had. So I wish something would be done about those problems. Also, Veterans Day. It was very limited this year. Why? I'd like to know why it was very limited, was that much on the website about Veterans Day. I would like to get a copy of the minutes from the Cannabis Committee, Subcommittee. I live here, and the proposed cannabis plant is down the street from me. And if you're telling me you want to put one up down there, develop it, plant it, develop it, and I'm not going to smell it, no way. So I'd like to get the minutes from that subcommittee in regards to the cannabis plant. And it is next to a park. You're putting a cannabis plant.
Ms. Baker, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes were up. I know you have my number and email. Feel free to call me anytime.
And again, anyone that may not have access to email, the email is clerk@tnecnj.gov. If you do not have access to email, 201-837-1600, extension 1025. The clerk's office is eager to help you. Ben Sandler. Ben Sandler.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. 3 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I won't need nearly that much time. I want to thank you all for all the hard work you do. I'm sure you're very busy and don't need to spend time reinventing the wheel on how to keep chickens in this neighborhood. There are a number of local towns that do it already. I believe Pagoda, Hackensack, Englewood, and Leonia all do. So I hope you can reach out to them, find out what's worked for them, and do the same here. I strongly support being able to raise chickens here. I believe it's a great way to reconnect to nature and get closer to the source of our food. So hope you'll act on that. Thank you so much.
Ben, I will bank your other minute and 45 seconds, sir. Thank you. I am bringing in Katie Katz. Katie Katz. Katie Katz, whenever you're ready.
I am ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Katie Katz from Vandalinda Avenue. I live right near the hospital. As my neighbors have mentioned, the neighbors have been working to come to an agreement with Holy Name. We've been taking this process seriously, and we have remained consistent on our priorities. We've also gone to great lengths to come to an agreement with the hospital that is satisfactory to all parties. And we would like to be supportive of the hospital, and there is a path for that to happen. Please do protect Teaneck's residents and its neighborhoods and put pressure on the hospital to work towards an agreement. Until that happens, the master plan amendment process should be paused so that an agreement can be reached. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'm bringing in Patricia Butler. I will also bank your 2 minutes and 45 seconds, Katie Katz. Patricia Butler. Give it a second, trying to bring you in. It's moving a little slow. Family and friends, I apologize. Patricia Butler, whenever you are ready. Patricia Butler, please unmute whenever you're ready. I think you're still muted, my friend. I see you're unmuted, Miss Butler, but I can't hear you.
Pat, we can't hear you. You're muted.
She's not muted, actually. I just think
Oh, yeah,
something
she's
might be
not.
wrong with her
Yeah,
microphone.
that's true. Can we move to someone else and go back to
Yeah,
Pat?
yeah. Miss Butler, you figure out your microphone and I'll come back to you. I am bringing in Alana Samad. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly.
That's okay, Alana Samad. I am going to reiterate what my neighbors said about the hospital. We would like to have a deal with the hospital. We hope that we will. But I don't think that they're going to be very amenable to having a deal with us if they get whatever they want through their, for their expansions through the master plan amendments. So I would ask that it be held until a deal is reached with the neighbors. That way, everybody will get what they want. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Miss Butler, is your mic working? It's still not working, Miss Butler. I will check in with you in a minute. I have hashtag Kosher Alcoholic Blayberg. If you could please state your name for the record, it'd be much appreciated. Kosher Alcoholic Blayberg,
You're muted.
please unmute.
Deborah Blayberg.
Oh, Deborah, okay, you got it. 3
Yes.
minutes.
My Zoom hates me. Okay, I would first of all like to reiterate everything that the good neighbours of Teaneck have said with regards to Holy Name Hospital, because we, as a victim of their not good neighbourly behaviour, we would like to see them acting in good faith and showing respect to both the town residents and the town rules, and we should hold off on that master plan for the planning meeting. I would also like to once again bring up the issue of the lack of a clearly defined border at the burial grounds on Pavanda Walk. So that the public does not have to fear for intervention due to the homeowner calling the police on certain members of the public. As I understand it, there is actually already improvement for this via the park implementation plan on page 17 of the conservation easement, which shows a split rail fence to run the entire length of the property. So it doesn't actually need council approval, it just needs implementing. So could the council please get on with it so that people who live in the town can enjoy this area without fear of getting arrested? And again, chickens are capable of being in the cold. So just want to re-add that, and that is all. And have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Deborah. You too. Pat, any luck? Give me a check 1, 2 real quick. Okay. I still can't hear you, Pat. I will be back to you. Andrea Schumann, running down the list here. You have quite a bit time to figure it out, Miss Butler. Don't worry. Andrea Schumann.
Hi, I'm not sure if I pressed the right button.
I can hear you loud and clear. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I wanted to thank everybody for the time we've already spent on the chicken ordinance. I'm speaking up in support of a chicken ordinance. Would love to have chickens in Teaneck, just like many neighboring towns, including New York City, which has no issues. And I don't know if it was spoke about tonight, but with the deer population soaring and ticks on the rise, chickens should be one thing that we should all be trying to get in our backyards because they love to eat ticks. So we could, really eliminate some future disease spread from ticks if we could harness in on these chickens. Anyway, eggs are expensive. I want to buy eggs for my neighbors. I hope we can get this thing passed and pass it with coops that we can purchase at the store and not something too fancy that, someone who would just like to own their own chickens, that we want them to be able to afford it. We want them to be doing it safely. And I think they can do that if we can just work within the ordinance and get this thing passed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Bringing in Mr. Adam Gussing. Please unmute whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. 3 minutes, sir.
Adam Gussin. Are you there?
Former deputy mayor.
Thank you, Doug, for conducting this meeting this evening. Council, Mr. Attorney, to all dignitaries who may be present. I think what we saw tonight was an example of a governing body trying to do its best, right? This is an issue that not many people are familiar with the details, the science, the particulars or ramifications. And so we bring in our expert, and we heard from our health officer tonight, who admittedly was unfamiliar with the ordinance at hand, who admittedly had been incapable of reaching out to other communities and getting feedback from other towns that allow chickens, and who said they have no opinion, but be willing to be the voice for those who want to say no. I think what we saw was just a total failure of professional advice. And the idea that chickens can't survive in New Jersey is literally insane. That's like saying that COVID can't survive in the winter. We heard such like nonsense tonight. I'm like beside myself. This has been a matter before council now for going on more than a year. It's time to make a decision that the people of Teaneck want, that the people of Teaneck can live with, which means a commercially available coop, and in line with our immediate neighbors. It's time to take a vote on this, and it's time to say yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, former Deputy Mayor. I lost my hands here. I have Alan. Please state your name for the record. I'm bringing Alan's moving a little slow, guys. I'm sorry. Mr. Allen, I tried to bring you in, but it didn't work. It looks like your hand was put down too. You have some time. How about Pat Butler? How's it working for you? Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Butler. Oh, I see your face. You're still muted.
You're still muted.
Try to unmute real quick and see if your mic's working.
Alan Rubenstein.
Alan, give me 1 second as we try to work with Miss Butler here.
Okay.
Miss Butler, if yours, I can't hear you. If your
Yeah, we
Zoom's
can't
not
hear you.
working, try to call in. Try to use your phone to call in. We'll be right back to you. Alan Rubenstein, good to see you,
Thank you.
sir.
Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you to the deputy mayors who have spent much time dealing with hospital issues. I am unsure, however, why this council is pushing the planning board to proceed with a master plan hearing next Tuesday before we reach a written settlement with the hospital. I was shocked that Deputy Mayor Schwartz recently advised us that, quote, the town management, council, and outside professionals are all in agreement to commence the master plan hearing, end quote. What the deputy mayor is ignoring is we had 2 meetings with the hospital recently, attended by a plethora of township management, attorneys, and elected officials, including him. At both meetings, the hospital thought it was appropriate to provide documents to us to review at the meeting and expect us to have constructive conversation on something we had never seen prior to the meeting. The latest document, presented on November 10th, not only ignored several fundamental conditions that we thought were agreed to, such as a continuous fence separating the entirety of the expanded hospital zone from the residential neighborhoods to the west, and deed restrictions on the properties between the hospital and Grange Road, but also included what can only be referred to as a permanent gag order designed to muzzle all of us and future property owners from ever directly or indirectly objecting to anything that the hospital has, will, or could ever do. I am baffled that none of the township functionaries attending that meeting, ostensibly to mediate the negotiations, didn't advise the hospital that those concepts were ludicrous and not productive in a settlement conference. Instead, this council continues to reward the hospital for its egregious conduct and is pushing ahead with a master plan hearing, even though there is no written agreement between the parties. Just to be clear, the hospital keeps coming up with new terms and removing items that were previously agreed to. We, on the other hand, are continuously asked to keep on giving. We'd appreciate if each council member tells us tonight why they think the master plan should remain on the calendar next week, as represented by the deputy mayor, despite the hospital's conduct at the past 2 meetings and their unwillingness so far to provide us with comments on our latest draft settlement document that we provided to the hospital's attorney yesterday morning, and we used their document for the basis for our changes. We also submitted 2 letters to the town requesting that it issue violations to the hospital for continuing to use the entirety of 4 properties on or adjacent to Chadwick Road for parking, although the permits that were issued expired on June 4th, when the governor issued an executive order that ended the public health emergency. That is the same executive order that the town attorney recently cited to justify the denial of electric signatures on petitions. Nonetheless, Holy Name is still parking and they're without valid zoning permits. We were advised in response to our request that the town issue violations to the hospital for unpermitted use of those properties, that it is, quote, being sent to our legal and management department for review and comment. Maybe legal and management, who are both in attendance tonight, can address this issue and maybe also explain why parking was permitted for 2 months before the permits were even issued.
Alan, I know you have my email, good friend. Please email me any thoughts that you were unable to fit in 3 minutes. I will fit them into the minutes. Oh, Miss Butler, I see your box is lighting up.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Maybe
3
I'll keep
minutes.
the browsers open. I've been on Zoom all day. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and join you all. Haven't seen you in a while. I'm calling. My concern is regarding the historical burial ground down there on Palmer Walk. And I think one of my colleagues just spoke about it, Deborah. Our concern, it's a beautiful space, as you know, and the township did a wonderful, wonderful job, I think back in, was it 2013, when they bought the property and preserved it with the historical landmarks. We've held events there, the Enslaved African Memorial Committee. We did a joint celebration with the Rampo Lenape Nation 2 summers, or maybe 2 summers ago, right before the pandemic hit. It's so scenic, lovely place for young people, the elderly, which of course is the elderly residents across the street. Our concern is that it's an open space, and under the former manager, Mr. Broughton, there was discussion and there was a promise that there would be some fencing to protect the public land, you know, that's sort of adjacent to the house that sits on top of part of the burial ground. And that was several years ago, at least I'd say 4 or 5 years ago now. And nothing has really happened to sort of designate the area as a historical landmark, to protect it so that the private resident is not feeling intruded or, you know, whatever, and that the public can really enjoy access to the space. And I'm hoping, in my reason for calling in this evening, because this is such amazing history in Teaneck, right here in our backyard. We have the Zabrinsky Historical House, we have the burial ground, the Native American, formerly called the Indian Slave Burial Ground, the enslaved Africans that had worked for the Zabrinsky family since the 1700s. We want to keep that history alive. We want to use places like these in Teaneck as tourist attractions, as places that our young people can learn from the history of our town. So I'm hoping, and I'm asking you all tonight to please consider very strongly setting up the fence. We had this in, I think, a easement agreement. It was also approved at some point by the former council members and some that are still on the council, which should be council members, Katz, Councilmember Schwartz. Maybe I'm missing someone, but yes, let's really think about when that could happen. And I'm sure it will be resolved soon. Thank you for your time and your patience with my technical difficulties. Have a great holiday.
You too, Ms. Butler. Thank you so much for your patience. I am bringing in Aziz Usmani. I apologize if I mispronounced that, Aziz. Please feel free to correct me.
Hello, everyone. And yes, you did not mispronounce. It was pretty nicely done.
Nice. 3 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm calling in about 2 things. The first is the hospital issue. I was not familiar with the issue until this meeting, and now I feel like that the concerns of the residents are being ignored. Just listening to the folks who are calling in, why is it that we don't insist as a town on a written agreement before we allow them to make any changes to the zone, whatever the laws they want exemption from? So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to talk about are the chickens. It really, makes me very concerned why this issue is taking so long. It's been over a year. Our neighboring towns, and even city of New York, which is much densely populated than Teaneck, that have houses adjoining each other. The backyards are basically 10 by 5 or 10 by 6. they allow chickens. Why is it that they don't have any health concerns and we are trying to find our health expert, so-called health expert, to tell us about, chickens? Why is that? Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Why is it taking so long? Why are we kicking the cans down the road? This is an established thing. It is not something that is new. Teaneck is not the first town that is considering allowing people to have chickens. Why? I'm really puzzled why New York City allows chicken and their rules and their laws are so relaxed compared to what is being proposed in New York, in Teaneck. This is just simply not acceptable. I know all of you are very dedicated people. You're giving in your time, which we all appreciate, but this slowness, this attitude of just trying to find out something or reinvent the wheel is beyond me. And I'm sorry to be a little bit more disturbed than I should be. But that's what I want to talk about. The other thing is, as far as, issues, I love dogs, but being a Teaneck resident of over 20 years, I don't want to tell you how many times I have to clean up my yard from the droppings of the dogs, the neighborhood dogs, and how many times I have heard dogs bark nonstop. So all of these issues combined together, I really feel that Teaneck needs to move on with this and not drag its feet over this issue and get it done. Just look at the rules and the laws that are in our neighboring towns or New York City for that matter. Why are we trying to reinvent? And thank you. And a happy Thanksgiving.
Aziz, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes were up. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. My email is clerk@tnecknj.gov if you weren't able to fit everything. Mayor, we are 4 minutes away from 11 p.m. Can we get an motion perhaps to extend to 11:30? You're muted, sir. You're muted, Mayor.
We hear a motion to extend the meeting to 11:30.
Motion to move the meeting to 11:30.
Second, Schwartz.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all. I am bringing in Chuck Powers. Please unmute whenever you're ready. Chuck? There you are. Hello, sir. You're muted. You're muted, Chuck.
Chuck, you're muted. There you go.
I want to thank both Denise Belcher and Margaret Baker tonight for their unbelievably articulate discussions about some of the shortfalls on the work of the cannabis subcommittee. Why we don't have any kind of actual report, any sort of picture of where they're going, and why we have, although we had a very excellent presentation that suggests, in fact, that the Campbell family really would like to be part of the process, perhaps anyhow, it's unclear from that entire presentation what actual expertise they are bringing to something as complex as trying to make sure that the Englewood is not adversely affected in its park, because it is only yards away. Time and time again, this council has been asked whether or not anyone has approached the city of Englewood and told them what we plan to do. Has it happened? They don't think it has, because every time they get together, they're talking about the fact that no one from Teaneck has told them what's happening, particularly affecting their parks. We need a much more transparent process. We need to know what actual expertise the Campbell family, as wonderful as it is, would bring to this very important technical task, particularly if they're going to be in the testing business, to make sure that we're not actually seeing a mix of marijuana with other drugs, which are far more dangerous. We need a better piece of work, both in terms of what is brought forward, but also in terms of what we learn about what they have learned. We do not know enough at this point to support any given group. We don't know whether or not, as Ms. Belcher pointed out, we're open to having other people actually come and receive the same plan. Your attorney told you we don't need actual criteria. The criteria are those you make up. I think it's time that this town actually began to respect expertise. For example, the fact that you are absolutely mandated to create a site plan review advisory board with expertise to help your beleaguered land use boards, and you haven't created it. You haven't created any membership of it since 2016, and you don't even list it, even though it's a required advisory board. You don't even list it on the township website. Thank you very much.
You, sir. I'm bringing in Yassine El-Karani. Yassine, whenever you are ready, my friend. Cool background. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. All right. So what's in common between Kaczynski, Shadanian, Pagan, Katz, and Roussillon tonight? They all seem to have gotten a hairstyle upgrade. And then if you folks came across the same coupon for a barbershop, I would like to get one. But for this, I'm also going to ask for transparency. One of you has to disclose the name and address of your barber because I need a haircut. Now that you smiled, let's get a business. Thank you, Councilwoman Rice, for your report on the Advisory Board on Community Relations. I'm here to double down on the idea of a National Day for Prayer. It was great to see Dr. Dunleavy or hear Dr. Dunleavy and Mr. Kaczynski hear them speak yesterday at the Interfaith event. But I think the council has an opportunity to double down and then make a stamp on the willingness to unite this town by organizing a township government National Day for Prayer in 2022. And I hope that somebody would make a motion tonight, or at the very least express verbally your willingness to organize such an event. And if what I'm about to say is inappropriate, I'm guilty of honors, but by now we've identified individuals who are capable of organizing high quality interfaith activities. And maybe we can pay someone to organize something like this. But I really believe that the township government should have an event like this every single year. Now, speaking as a resident, I hope that any proceeds that's going to be generated by the cannabis ventures be earmarked for social projects. I guess there could be a discussion about what social project means. That is that. Mrs. Linda Burns, you're welcome and thank you for your service. And be it through heat or naturally, real chickens can survive the winter. Human chickens cannot. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Good night.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Yassine. My barber is top secret. I apologize. I am bringing in Lightburn. Councilman Kaplan's got the most talented barber in Teaneck. Lightburn. Please state your name for the record, Lightburn, if it's not a problem.
How are you? Laverne Lightburn. How are you?
Oh, Laverne, hello. 3 minutes.
Okay. As someone with respiratory concerns and allergies, I have done a lot of study about these chickens. I'm deeply concerned about the transmittable disease and other respiratory irritants due to the mold and dust and dander that the chickens are constantly making as they grow and shed feathers. Chickens also create a fine dust out of bedding material and manure that they shed to bed as they scratch the ground. Sometimes bedding or feed becomes moldy, especially during the raining period. While they may become pets and they feed some people, they can become a health hazard and a nuisance because dogs do bark, but people bring their dogs inside. Remember that also. You can't bring the chickens inside. You're not supposed to, but anyway, for their surroundings. There is a lesson that we as a species have failed to learn throughout the hundreds of years. Tuberculosis, measles, whooping cough, typhoid, and leprosy, and the common cold all have one thing in common. They jumped from animals to people when we started domesticating farm animals. Let us just avoid the problem, the suits and everything, especially when there are too many other risk factors that need to be considered before people in urban suburbs are allowed to own chickens. With that said, I'm saying that we're dealing with a pandemic right now. We also know that there was a major outbreak in other countries because of people with chickens being their pets, sleeping with their chickens, acting like this. You can't count on people being responsible. Our houses are too close, and there are so many documents, the CDC. Start there by reading there. There's, I sent you all a whole bunch of things, the zoonotic diseases, the rodents and everything else that are attracted to chickens. They're one of the prime feasts, I guess, for all these different animals that we do have in Teaneck. We're not New York. We need to research New York a little bit. And I commend you all for doing more research on this because this is serious. We have all these, we don't even know what next pandemic is going to come up. Why are we looking for trouble? Go buy the daggone eggs. It's not a problem for y'all to buy eggs. If you want a pet, there's so many other pets. We do not have to domesticate farm animals, as they say. Chickens have many predators.
Laverne, I apologize. The 3 minutes was up. Please call me if you need anything or email me. Either one. I am bringing in Ronnie Schlussel. Ronnie, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Ronnie Schlussel. I live on Grange Road. I am one of the hospital's neighbors as well. I am truly dumbfounded as to why this council would encourage the planning board to consider the hospital's request to change the master plan. We have been assured at every step of the way by this council that if anything were to be taken from our residential neighborhood and switched to become a hospital zone, it would only be done with the complete protection of the neighbors, the residents of this town. And despite the fact that we have worked long and hard and tried to accommodate in every way that we possibly could, the hospital has been completely unresponsive, unprofessional, and negotiated and basically have not negotiated. They've pretty much refused to even consider a normal negotiation. And with all of that, and this is where my big question comes in, what possible reason could this council have for moving this thing forward? Is there a gain here that you're not sharing with us? Is there someone on this council that wishes to gain from this? Because clearly the town, the residents in this town will lose. So I would like that question answered tonight, please. Thank you.
Ronnie, I'm bringing in Jesse Leon.
Doug, this is the last one for this evening.
Okay, you got it. Dean, I apologize. I did not mean to kick you out of the panelists.
No, Jesse's good, but he'll be our last one.
Yeah, Jesse.
Well, I'm glad that I'm the ringer. Thank you very much for that. A lot's been said about chickens tonight. A lot of factual things and a lot of things that demand a little bit of refutation. I'll add to the fact that chickens are capable of surviving in New Jersey in the winter. We've domesticated chickens more than 4,000 years ago. So like Aziz said, we're not reinventing the wheel here. chickens and humans living in relative close proximity has been a normal thing for so much of human history, all of recorded human history, as a matter of fact. I don't want to go over trodden ground, but when I wrote the ordinance that's sitting on somebody's desk right now and obviously hasn't really been read by anybody, including our health officer, unfortunately, I wrote it with the concerns that were brought up in mind, that there are issues of smell that can happen when people aren't responsible with their property. And there are issues of cleanliness that can happen. And all of those things, if anyone actually stops and reads the 2-page ordinance that I wrote, we'll see that there are things there that mitigate each of those issues. Issues of rodents in coming for food, besides the fact that chickens, little dinosaurs, eat mice. If a mouse comes to try and steal chicken's food, the chicken will take its revenge on that mouse, and then that mouse will not be an issue for very long. So I have to call out the blatantly false assumption that keeping chickens somehow causes an outbreak of COVID. I've seen no statistics to that fact. I've researched all of the CDC information about zoonotic illnesses related to chickens and backyard chickens specifically. The greatest threat is salmonella, and it's a threat only to the people who handle chickens and are exposed to their feces, because it's transmitted when you accidentally ingest chicken feces. So if your neighbors aren't coming into your backyard and licking your chicken's butt, they're not going to get salmonella. There hasn't been a single case of avian influenza associated with backyard chickens in the United States in recorded history, according to the CDC. It's a theoretical possibility, yes, because a chicken can catch chicken flu, can catch avian flu, but it has not happened because they live in low density environments like Teaneck. Chickens catch avian flu in the high density barracks that they keep them in Delaware, where they're living in these terrible little conditions. Where I'm asking for chickens to live in a run in backyards where they have room to grow, room to walk, they have some nice grass to scratch at, and they live a comfortable suburban life. I think that the chickens might be entitled to that. So please, I'd ask you again, put up the ordinance that I've given you. Let's have a discussion about the facts of what's actually in the ordinance. It's been sitting there since June. I think it's time that we actually talk about it.
Is that all, Jesse?
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Doug, we're going to close good and welfare at this point.
Okay. Any members of the public who were unable to speak, feel free to email me, clerk@tnecnj.gov. We will get your comments into the minutes.
Okay, thank you. And just before we go to council comments, I want to advise the council upon legal counsel discussion that discussions regarding the Holy Name Medical Center issues that were brought tonight are something that might become legal. And so I'm going to ask at this point that we refrain from discussing this until such time as we get some further notice as to what is going on. And I know that's frustrating to the public, but I think that's the best way we can possibly handle this for everyone involved and to protect the rest of the residents of Teaneck as well. So with that, I'm going to we'll start it off with Councilmember Rice.
Okay, so I just want to start by saying during this time of Thanksgiving, I would like to say thank you to a number of residents who have brought our community together in a great number of ways, starting with Cheryl Hall, who put together a really wonderful interfaith prayer service last evening, and all the participants. The spirit of joining the community together was genuine, as evidenced by the warmth and camaraderie experienced by gathering together. And as was expressed, that we were coloring outside the lines and breaking out of our silos. Secondly, Jeremy Lentz and the members of TIFF for a very successful 16th year of fabulous films that bring the community together under the banner of activism, making change, and really reiterating the quote that is under the banner of the festival. The festival is an excellent starting point to foster appreciation of differences, understanding that we share and encourage the effort to help make the world a better place. And Teaneck is a better place because of people like these who helped to seek making it a better place. With regard to, there was some comments about Englewood. I asked at a previous meeting if the subcommittee or anyone had spoken to Englewood, or any members on the council or their zoning boards, as the park was a concern. And it was mentioned that there was an attempt, but no response. I actually reached out to the council president in Englewood, Mr. Charles Cobb, and he mentioned that the cannabis issue in the industry proposed at Alfred Avenue has been and will continue to remain on their council agendas. He said, albeit for the fact that their council meetings are actually at the same time. I'm sure that they're probably done already by now, but he said that he'd be very open and interested in a collaborative open public meeting that would be in the best interest of residents in Englewood as well as Teaneck, particularly those that are directly impacted in that neighborhood. Also, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that we do have ordinance 57/2021, which we'll be voting on tonight as a first reading of the ordinance, and it's scheduled for public hearing on 12/14. And I would hope at that time that a lot of the questions that have been asked, that we could get further information as to what are the future intentions. Are there clear criteria set for the industry that we're launching into, and so that the community could indeed have questions answered, or just a timeline or outline of community input, community engagement as we launch into this. And some of the questions that Ms. Belcher asked, Ms. Barker, who's been asking Ms. Baker, I'm sorry, and her questions about the fence and already hindrance of a traffic pattern and the concern of traffic and accidents. And I would like to think that we would, at least in the construction period, make sure that there's safety in addition to once the construction takes place. Just always appreciative of all the residents that speak out and speak their concerns. And I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and safe holiday.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Councilmember Pagan.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to send a special thank you to the families and organizations who have recently donated food and supplies to the Helping Hands Food Pantry, including United Service Workers Union Local 755, who made a very kind contribution 2 weeks ago. I also want to remind residents about the free Thanksgiving meal being served this Thursday at Rain at 11 a.m. at 399 Water Street. And I'd like to thank our organizers and donors, including Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1429, Teaneck Rotary, The Cottage, Dougie's Chopsticks, Butterflake, and our very own Deputy Mayor Ellie Y. Katz for everything that he is doing to help make this annual event possible and successful. I also want to mention that Turkish Independence Day and Polish Independence Day were recently observed, because we do have a number of residents in town of Turkish descent and of Polish descent. And this upcoming Friday is Native American Heritage Day, which will also be observed nationwide. As for chickens, you all know where I stand on this and that I still support this initiative, but I do thank Dr. Diaz again for her presentation on the topic. As for cannabis, I sit on the subcommittee and am in full support of this initiative, because more than 10,000 Teaneck residents voted in support of the statewide referendum making this progress happen. And I do thank Anthony Campbell for his presentation. When it comes to the burial ground on Polmander Walk, I live about 8 houses away from that property and keep hearing complaints about folks getting harassed while there by a particular resident. So I am absolutely in favor of a fence going up there. And lastly, I want to thank all of our residents for participating tonight. And I would also like to thank City Hall staff for being here as well to help our residents with their concerns, because even if we don't get to answer all of your questions tonight, we are taking notes on what you are saying and we'll follow up with you. And I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving on Thursday. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Pagan. I'll move over now to Councilmember Kaplan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to thank the manager, the Patriotic Observers Advisory Board, and all those who have participated in making the Veterans Day program again this year. I was honored to speak about some of Teaneck's World War II heroes when I spoke about some of the history of Teaneck, and I blogged some of the newspaper articles about them. It's really an incredible story for some of the young men and women that went to fight at I blogged it at tnecktoday.com, and I'll also add the notes to the library. Hopefully they can include it in the virtual archive. Like Councilwoman Rice said, I really wanted to thank Cheryl Hall, the committee, and all those that participated in the interfaith ceremony last night. You know, it might sound like a joke, but a Jew, a Catholic, and Episcopalian walk into the room, and you know, you add the Baha'i, the Lutheran, and so many others. It was really a wonderful program, and it highlighted the best of Teaneck, and that's what we got when we attended. So the amount we share across different religions was really brought out, especially Father Joe's comments about coloring outside the lines, and really appreciate being invited to the program. Wanted to thank the manager for the Herculean task of dealing with these collective bargaining agreements. It's not easy, and you know, I'm sure the public doesn't appreciate it nearly enough, but it does allow us to budget and have certainty going forward. So thank you, Mr. Manager. Wanted to wish all residents a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with their families. And as Councilman Pagan noted, if you know anyone that's in need of food or company, please feel free to come by Rain on Thursday between 11 and 1 over on Water Street. If you want to participate or know anyone that does, feel free to reach out. You can email me at kkaplan@tnecknj.gov. Regarding cannabis use, I really appreciate the comments from residents, especially those that were against. I want you to know that just because a vote may not go your way doesn't mean that we didn't hear you, and we do definitely appreciate your viewpoints. You know, I don't want to say that we're ignoring Englewood, but we were elected by Teaneck, and in 2020, the election had a very unique feature that it was by mail, and due to that, 74.7% of our voters came out. It was, I think, a record turnout, and they had a question for whether or not we should legalize cannabis, and I know there's been some confusion here. This was not a question on decriminalization, you know, whether we should stop arresting people. This was full legalization, and once it's legal, it would be sold like tobacco or alcohol or anything else. And with 75%, 3 out of 4 voters coming out, the vote was pretty lopsided, 10,653. It was 72.8% of people voted in favor. They cast a vote for yes. So I certainly appreciate, you know, there are times when the people come out are indicative of the overwhelming view of the public, and there are times that the people coming out may disagree for very good reasons with what we do, and I appreciate them coming out. I certainly did hear their comments, and my vote will reflect what I believe the majority of Teaneck residents had decided. As far as the planning board decision, I appreciate what the mayor said, and you know, I'm not going to be speaking about anything regarding Holy Name, just a general comment for those that asked about the planning board. The master plan is a document of the planning board. It is not a document of the council, and whether or not to review that is in the purview of the planning board, not the council. So I wouldn't want to give the impression, even if we're not speaking to the issue specifically, that I, as a council member, have any say of what happens or goes on their agenda. I've never had any input unless I was sitting on the planning board, and that remains true to today. So thank you, and everybody have a great holiday with their families.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Kaplan. Councilmember Organ.
Thank you. I wanted to go over one point that the manager made that I hope everybody heard. And if not, I hope we will spend the energy to get this out to the community. Spatial data logic sounds like a home run. It sounds like something that's going to change our lives day to day. Complaints will be heard and followed up on. And so kudos for that. To the chickens, I think we need to take Mr. Leone's ordinance and look at it. The manager, the attorney, the mayor, and if it meets everyone's approval to list, I think we need to list it and vote on it. We need to move forward with that. As far as the burial ground goes, I think good fences make good neighbors, and I hope that that is something that we can move forward with. Hackensack legalized marijuana, and Teaneck voted to, and any place in Teaneck that we would have chosen would have bordered on somewhere, and we are not beholden to Hackensack for their decision. They've decided to go ahead with it. I don't know if they notified us or not, but they've moved ahead with it, and they are a separate city, and we are hoping that the program that we implement here will be successful and safe and will bring significant revenue to the town that we can then use for our residents. The area, if the way Mr. Campbell explained it, and what we would demand would not open up into Englewood in any way, shape, or form. It would be closest to Route 4, and that's how people would access it and hopefully purchase and leave. I also attended the Teaneck Interfaith Community Thanksgiving service after a very long day at work, and I left so energized and inspired, and I was so happy that I had the opportunity to attend. The 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays because we celebrate country. Thanksgiving is also my favorite holiday because we celebrate family and the ones we love. And we kick off to a holiday season where I think after last year, we can all appreciate the small things in life and those that we're close to, and really just focus on what's important. So I wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving and a happy holiday season coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Organ. And before I have my comments, can I have a motion to extend the meeting to 11:45 if possible, if needed?
I'd like to make a motion to move the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you. All right, a number of things. First, we will be recognizing the new members of the Board of Education at our December meeting, as we did last year. So that will be done formally. Dean, can we check on the line of sight questions over at Alfred Avenue, just to see what the developer is doing to make sure that signs aren't knocked down and line of sight issues are not there, please?
Yes, I have that in my notes already. We'll check on that first thing tomorrow.
Great, thank you. I guess I've been for the chickens. Made it clear I've been for the chickens, but I also want as many people as possible to be comfortable with it. So Dean, what I'm going to ask is, can we have the health officer reach out to the surrounding communities that have the chicken ordinances and see what things they have or haven't experienced with them, so we have a better handle. And I think also we need to sit down. I think Councilman Kaplan, you were involved with putting the ordinance together, right?
Yes, and we almost got it passed.
All right. So if we can take another look at that and work with the health officer and with you and with legal to see if we need to beef it up in order to make it a little bit better. And again, we still have the coop issue that is pending. So if we can try and clean this up, because these people in good conscience are coming here time and time again asking for this, and I think they deserve an answer. So let's see if we can't get this moving and off the docket.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do this fence. It sounds like it's just something that's got to be done, and it's already been approved, if I understood it correctly. So I see no reason why we can't get this fence done down by the burial site. I'm happy. I'm not going to die before SDL comes into play. This has been, I think, was one of the first things that that I got involved with Councilman Kaplan in getting this done. And I think it's going to be a great positive for the community, a great positive for recreation department, just great positive for everybody in getting this computerization done. So I'm very, very happy to hear it, and I look forward to seeing it coming down. In terms of the Englewood thing, one of the things you have to realize is that Englewood does receive the ordinances that we pass. So Englewood had the ordinance. Now, I can tell you that I have not received a single phone call or anything from any leadership in Englewood with respect to the ordinance that we passed regarding cannabis. So to say that we're not good neighbors, or to say they didn't know, I'm sorry, that's just not accurate. So we're gonna move forward with all the things that you talked about. Hopefully, move forward with some things this evening, and I think we're going to inform everybody. We're going to have everybody have an opportunity to ask their questions before anything gets formally done. So I'm hopeful of that. Let's see, anything else? I think the last thing I have is I'm going to ask Dean if you could please to discuss that issue that was raised, I believe, by Dr. Paris.
Sure. Just before that, that issue about the fence came up at the last council meeting. Right after that, I did discuss this with Kevin, so that's already in progress on some sort of fence barrier, trees, shrubs, something there that will designate the property line. So that's in the works already. I'll be able to update everyone fairly shortly on the progress of that. As the easement was approved this evening for the diversion, PSC&G will issue a compensation check, which is going to be deposited into the township's already established designated account. We cannot withdraw the funds to compensate itself for the diversion replacement parcels until those replacement parcels are formally approved by Green Acres. The improvement is going to involve Green Acres review of the technicals, as I mentioned, the survey, title, PAR appraisal. So we're familiar with the process that needs to take place. For each of these parcels, the township is going to need to draft a deed from itself to itself, which Green Acres will review, and which will include Green Acres restrictive language about not being able to use the land for other than recreation and conservation purposes without the approval of the DEP commissioner and the State House Commission. As everyone knows, we must acquire 3.37 acres of new land or designate for park land use encumbered land it already owns. If the value of that acquired or designated land is less than the cash contributions by PSC&G, then the remaining funds must be used for land acquisition, not park improvements. However, I was told if we designate land already owned, we can reimburse ourselves for the value of that land, and those reimbursement funds may be used for park improvements or other municipal purposes. So we're familiar with the process. I've been in touch with DEP. There are no surprises, and we'll move forward with what we need to do.
Thank you, Dean. And as you've heard from many of us who attended the interfaith event last night, we were so impressed and so moved by it. I just want to read you one short paragraph from my presentation there to perhaps give you a flavor of what we were all thinking. Hopefully it bears some fruit. This event this evening is an expression of TNEC's desire to not fall prey to what I call the virus of siloing of thought. We're here because we value opportunities to bring diverse groups together in order to not prove that one is better than the other, but rather to learn about each other, show respect for those differences, and from this we learn just how many things we have in common. These commonalities and respect for others is what a strong, vibrant community is built on, and what I believe TNEC is built on and will continue to be built on for years to come. It was a great, great program. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, let's move on now to the consent agenda. And Doug, if you could read the bill list into the record.
Absolutely, Mayor. We are considering on tonight's consent agenda, the minutes and also the resolutions 280 to 307, 2021. 306 and 307 are the walk-ins from the subcommittee. I just want to remind everybody that, so you're not going to see them on your agenda. However, you can find the language in the subcommittee listed item. And with that said, we have minutes, resolutions, and the bill list in the amount of $8,069,557.03.
Thank you, Doug. Does anybody have anything they want to pull? I'm afraid to ask.
Oh.
Councilman
I
Cap?
just have a recusal on one. Should I mention
Oh.
that now or during the vote?
No, you can do it during the vote.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion, please, to move the bill list, raffles, minutes, and resolutions 280 through 307?
Motion?
Second,
Call a roll, please.
Councilwoman Rami Rice,
yes, with an abstention on the bills list.
and Councilman Bagan,
Yes on everything.
Councilwoman Organ,
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan.
Yes, with the recusal on 288.
You got it. Deputy Mayor Schwartz, Deputy Mayor oh, they're both not here. Mayor Dunleavy,
Yes.
yes on all.
Yes on all. Sorry. Introduction of ordinances.
All right, we are considering a few ordinances this evening. For first reading, we have ordinance 54-2021, amending ordinance number 25-2021 entitled an ordinance amending Article 2, parking of Chapter 36, traffic of the Code of the Township of Teaneck to add Division 10, respecting the location, installation, and regulation of electric charging stations, and amending Appendix 3, fees and charges for certain township services of Chapter 2, Charter Administrative Code of the Township of Teaneck respecting electric charging station fees. We have ordinance number 55-2021, establishing salary ranges and classification of positions for municipal employees in the Township of Teaneck, included within the Teaneck Police PBA Local Number 215 for the years 2022 to 2026. Ordinance number 56-2021, establishing salaries and classification of positions for municipal employees in the Township of Teaneck, included within the Teaneck Police Superior Officers Association for the years 2022 to 2026. That was 56. Ordinance number 57-2021, amending ordinance number 29-2021, permitting cannabis establishments as a conditional use within the light industry district in the Township of Teaneck. Those are the ordinances for first reading, Mayor.
Thank you. Does any council member wish to comment upon those and the motion to introduce? All right, seeing none.
Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember.
No,
Ray.
just wanted to reiterate what I stated earlier about ordinance number 57 for public hearing, which is scheduled for December 14th, that we would indeed allow that to be a public opportunity for comment, as this is an issue of concern.
Thank you. All right. Do I hear a motion to move ordinance number 54, 55, 56, 57 for introduction?
Motion.
Second,
Second. Call a roll, Doug?
Councilwoman Rami Rice,
yes.
Councilman Bagan,
Yes.
Councilwoman Oregon,
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan,
Yes.
Mayor Dunleavy.
Yes.
We will see these ordinances on December 14th.
I thank everyone for coming this evening, a little bit longer than usual, but I think we did a lot of good work. And I want to wish everybody, on behalf of the council and the township, a happy Thanksgiving and a happy Hanukkah for those who are celebrating. And we will see you in December. Good
And,
night.
come to the tree lighting and the menorah lighting.
Tree lighting and menorah lighting.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.